Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Yugao, Mei, femKyubi. Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. The young blonde slowly started to stir from his exhaustion to see darkness dimly illuminated by a wide orb in the sky. He watched it pass overhead slowly for several seconds before he moved. He sat up slowly as he looked around to see the two wolves lying around them with their ears up high, as if they were alert. Long time no see Naruto-sama. Spoke the crimson female as she opened her eyes that focused on the boy. The boy nodded before he heard rustling in the nearby bushes. He looked at them to see a boy walk into the clearing with a downcast look plastered onto his face. The boy looked up to see the blonde ninja with his two wolves. Instantly, the boy's face lit up at the sight of Naruto. "Naruto Niasen!" shouted the boy as he dashed towards the ninja and tackled him in a hug. The boy looked up to see Naruto smile at him with a wide grin right before he poofed out of existence. "Hey, that's not fair," the boy shouted as he turned to see a grinning Naruto running away. The boy instantly ran after him with a grin the same size of his brother figure. The young boy then followed him out of the forest to see Naruto finally walk into the house as he waved at him. Inari laughed before he got to the door and attempted to open. Till he figured out Naruto was holding the door on the other side. Inari huffed before he realized what he had to do. He carefully tiptoed to an open window to see no one watching it. Then he jumped through it shouting hi. The woman with blue hair turned just in time to catch a flying boy as she fell on her back. The ninja however tensed slightly till they saw Tsunami start to giggle slightly. "Inari, what have I told you about jumping through windows?" shouted Tsunami to the boy as she still continued to giggle a little bit. "Aka-san, you've only told Nai-san not to do it," spoke the young boy. "If I tell him then it applies to everyone, including you," spoke Tsunami as she started to tickle the young boy, earning a tender look from all the people around at the show of their bond. "Ah, ha, san please, haha, stop," stuttered out the young boy as he continued to laugh while being tickled. Naruto's face softened at the display slightly, which went unnoticed as he saw them from the back of the room. The two stopped after a few minutes with the young boy still grasping for air from the intense tickle attack he had gotten. "So Sachi, what is going on right now?" asked the young woman, eliciting several surprised looks from the ninja to find out Tsunami was the young blonde's mother. "It has had its up and downs, Yuka-san," right the young boy quickly. "You know, same old, just picking up random orphans from the street. Spending a few years with them, then watching them disappear from sight. You know the usual," spoke the woman sweetly, very sweetly, earning a sheepish look from the ninja. "Sorry, had to go back to my traveling plan before things started to get out of hand with them. What have I missed since I was last here? Does Gato finally taking over?" spoke the brunette calmly as she served the blonde his reheated dinner. The young boy ate, reminiscing on old times with his mother before Hana finally interrupted. "Yeah, so Inari just started running when he started Tsunami before being interrupted. Are you the boy's real mother?" asked Hana simply as she gave the woman a stern glare. "No, I was not his biological. Merely a caretaker of sorts." Now Inari started running before he tripped on a rock and started to roll down the hill before he rolled into a giant puddle. Spoke the woman, turning from Hana to the young blonde once more as they continued to reminisce. However, the other ninja looked at the woman with different perspectives. "I'm glad she raised him to be a little kind-hearted. Who knows what could have happened if he hadn't had her," thought Kurenai. "Man, she's hot, but she's Naruto's Ka-san," thought Kiba while looking at the woman. My insects still haven't located anything of importance," thought Shino, tuning the whole thing out. "He's so cute when he is smiling," thought Hinata with a little drool leaving the corner of her mouth. "Why do I feel jealous of this woman? I mean, she only knows more than me about Naruto. Damn it, why I'm thinking like this," thought Hana as the individuals slowly started to call it a night one by one. The young blonde ninja finally got into bed and instantly let sleep take him. The blonde opened his eyes to see his mindscape that had a forest similar to the one behind the Hokage monument with a nice waterfall falling off a nearby cliff. The boy looked around till he saw a sleeping figure under a large tree. The boy walked over to the beautiful sleeping Redeed and admired her face that seemed so at peace with the current world. He smiled, continued to smile while looking at her with only one thought in his mind: 3 days, just 3 more days till we can talk again, Kayu-chan. The boy thought as he sat next to her. He wrapped an arm around her to see the figure 9 tails snuggle into his shoulder, making him show a loving smile as he gently caressed her face and head. He sat there for a few hours talking about what has happened back in the real world, making him reflect on the few good times he had encountered in life. A few being with his surrogate mother Tsunami, some with his Kayu-chan, and the rare occasion he met his blood supplier, Anne. I refuse to say who this is unless you somehow manage to guess it. He sat there for hours on end in silence, watching clouds float by before he felt a tug. then a stronger one signaling someone was trying to wake him up. He looked at Kyubi one last time before planting a kiss on her forehead, then he closed his eyes. When he opened them he was greeted with an angry Hana walking in with a bucket filled to the brim with ice-cold water fresh from the sea. "Damn, you couldn't sleep for a few more seconds," shouted Hana angrily. "Not a chance." I still have the water," I wonder trailed off the brunette before she disappeared from whence she came. Moments later howling could be heard. "Damn you sis. I'll kill you for this," shouted Kiba as Hana ran by the boy's door, followed by one Kiba in his boxers that had pictures of steak on it. He was chasing his sister with an angry look on his face as he held a kunai in his hand. Naruto shook his head before he got up and got dressed into his attire that consisted of his fox face mask, a black shirt with a small trim of orange on the sides, and black pants. He then put on blue shinobi sandals before walking out of his room to smell the scent of bacon and eggs downstairs as it slowly wafted upstairs. The boy quickly appeared downstairs surprising one brunette and making one little kid excited to see his brother again. He quickly hugged his surrogate mother before he heard rustling behind him. He turned to look at it to see nothing and where it originally came from. He squinted his eyes before Kurenai and her team minus Kiba walked down the stairs. The boy relaxed himself just as Tsunami started to set the table and dished the food out. The morning went by quick with talk of more training, but that the two teams would take 2-hour guard shifts of Old Man Taz. They quickly agreed that Hana and Naruto would guard Tazuna for 2 hours twice as well as Kurenai's team due to the minimal amount of light which only allowed about 8 hours of good light this time of the year. The two teams quickly headed in their respective directions with Tazuna following Hana and Naruto. Naruto arrived at the bridge to see all the material needed nearby with only a few workers. "What the hell do you mean they quit?" shouted Tazuna in anger. "Just like I said. They are afraid of Gato and don't want their family to get hurt," spoke a man slightly larger than Tazuna with a thick burly brown beard, dark brown hair, and brown eyes matching his hair, making his face look like someone just scribbled the color brown on him because they were too lazy to think of a different combination of colors. Naruto quickly walked up to Tazuna with his whiteboard in hand. "I can get you some workers. How many do you need to finish by the end of the week?" "At least 3 dozen or so. The problem is that I don't have the funding to hire that many," spoke the old man while looking at some papers. "I can help you," wrote the boy before he crossed his fingers summoning 4 dozen clones astonishing the old man. A few seconds later he started to direct them. The 2 hours passed relatively uneventful aside from a clone or two complaining, but what can you expect from a kid? The other team showed up on the dot and the moment they took over Hana and the real Naruto shoeshined to their training area leaving the clones to help build the bridge. "Okay, Naruto, you got some explaining to do about your damn bloodline. What 2 elements are they, because you seem to know what it is?" stated Hana while sending an unbreakable glare at the young blonde. "The 2 elements are wind and water," wrote the young boy confusing the Inyazuka heiress. "But don't wind and water chakra make the ice bloodline?" questioned Hana still obviously confused. "The ice release requires 3/4 of the used chakra to be wind and the other quarter is water. Whereas the whirlpool bloodline requires the exact opposite," wrote the boy eliciting another confused stare from Hana. "So can you learn the ice bloodline too, then?" asked the woman. "Yes and no, because of how chakra works. In order to fuse 2 chakras evenly to make a mixed jutsu takes years if not decades, but in order to balance it perfectly to create a bloodline they were not born with would require a shinobi to have chakra control like that of Tsunade. On top of that one would also require the ability to manipulate chakra at the level of a Bijuu in order to shape it in the way the bloodline works. The reason we bloodline holders have the ability to use a specified bloodline is our chakra inherently comes in the exact shape and amount required by instinct," explained the young ninja revealing his large amount of knowledge. "So I could learn any bloodline I want?" Hana asked slightly surprised. "Only if you could either figure out the necessary amount of chakra required to make the exact shape for the bloodline or if someone who knows their own bloodline taught you how. Even with the last happening it would still take several decades just to achieve," wrote the young boy as he started shaking his hand furiously. "What's wrong Naruto-kun?" asked a young woman with a slight amount of worry on her face. "My hand hurts from writing too much," wrote the young boy receiving not a sweat drop but an anime face fall from Hana as the boy laughed silently at the display. "Alright, all jokes aside, let's start some chakra control exercises," spoke the woman as she pulled out a handful of senbons. "What are those for?" "You've heard of laying down on kunai, right? Well, how about we try that with senbon?" spoke Hana with a sadistic gleam in her eyes and a matching smile that would make Anko proud. Elsewhere. The young purple pineapple-haired woman was eating dango before she felt a shiver go down her spine. "Damn it. I'm the only one in this world allowed to be sadistic," shouted the woman as she suddenly stood up in the dango shop, getting sweat drops from every other customer in the shop. Back to Wave. Naruto was training hard for the next week as nothing eventful had happened except for the occasional feeling of someone or something watching him, yet every time he looked over his shoulder nothing stood there. It was as if he was being haunted by a phantom, and unfortunately Naruto hated ghosts of any sort, so he started to take precautions such as putting dozens of anti-ghost anti-supernatural amulets around his neck. The young boy was on guard at the bridge once more as he couldn't drop the feeling of being stalked. Unlike other times, this had been looming over him for well over an hour and showed no signs of leaving him anytime soon. A few more minutes passed till he felt as if he was surrounded. He looked around to see no difference, just the usual fog all around that wrapped around the city like a blanket. The boy continued to look around till he saw a group of silhouettes on the other side of the nearly completed bridge. They stood there staring in the boy's direction. Naruto froze before the figures suddenly disappeared like phantoms fleeing this plane of existence. Several hours passed when they finally finished the bridge, and surprisingly all of Gato's men had disappeared as soon as it was finished. Even more surprising, the fat rich man's men seemed to leave the people alone since the ninja got here for some strange reason. With the bridge finished and night descending on our group of ninja, they decided to stay one last day and leave in the morning. Morning came quick and with it the ninja rose, however during their early breakfast at Tazuna's house, a loud scream was heard near where the bridge was. Fearing the worst, the ninjas stopped eating and left abruptly in the direction of the bridge. When they got there they were greeted with a slightly horrifying sight. On a pike in the center of the bridge was a man. However, this man had a long spear entering from where his privates would be and exited the man's body at the neck. The man had a terrified expression glued to his bloodied face that had been mutilated as one of the eyes were missing, along with several teeth, fingers, and an ear. His hair was stained crimson in his own blood as he just stood there on the pole. This man was someone everyone in Wave had wanted dead, however even the more radical of the Wave citizens wouldn't have done this, even if the man in question was Gato. The crowd all had the same feeling wash over them, relief and fear at the image presented before them. Naruto walked up to the body before he ripped the pike from the ground and slowly dragged it to the edge. He then dropped the still impaled body down into the river that moved rather slowly as it carried the hated man out to sea. Naruto during the whole event had an unreadable face, but he was slightly disturbed by the turn of events. He had planned to switch with a clone on the way home and kill the evil businessman. However, this had ruined his plans and he wanted to know who had done this act. After the blonde ninja dropped the body in the river, he looked around to see a group of 4 in the distance as they were veiled by the fog itself, making it impossible to see who they were. For some strange reason he seemed drawn to one of them. It was almost as if he could feel the familiarity of one of the members of the group, however the other 3 seemed to be strangers. The boy started to slowly walk to the figures and this time the figures seemed to approach him. When he was close to the figures he then heard the voices behind him. "Hey Naruto. Where are you going?" shouted Hana before the boy disappeared, making the others slightly tense. They still sensed him, so they weren't too afraid as he suddenly stopped moving and his chakra hadn't had any changes in fluctuation. The boy in the heavy fog however was greatly surprised by the sight of the 4. He suddenly dashed forward and wrapped a young brunette in a giant bear hug. "Hey, Naru-kun," voiced the brunette. "Ni-chan," the boy whispered at very lowly as he started to sob lightly and hug her tighter. "So this is the boy you were talking about, Am-chan?" asked an auburn-haired woman with a herringbone-style hairdo with several bangs falling and crossing at her ample chest. She wore a blue combat kimono that showed off her shoulders and cleavage, which was covered by a fishnet covering underneath. "Yes, Mei-sama, this is the boy I was talking about," spoke Am as she rubbed the boy's head and whispered soothing words into the boy's ear. "Well, I can see why you were interested in him. He is quite the looker," teased the young auburn ninja, causing a mild blush to form on the 2 hugging figures' cheeks. "Mei-sama, you shouldn't tease the kids," spoke a man with an eye patch over one eye and a talisman on each ear. "Shut up or I'll kill you, Ao-san," spoke Mei with a Hanyu mask appearing behind her bittersweet smile. "Yes, Mei-sama," stuttered out the blue-headed man as he took several steps back. Naruto finally let go of Am as he stared into her chocolate-colored eyes that he just loved looking at. "So, Naru-kun, how is my dad doing?" asked Am with a smile on her face, just waiting to hear about Tucci. "He's not. I mean he's," huffed Naruto before he brought the board up once more. The 3rd Hokage burned the stand down with Tucci Jiji inside. As well as some other customers. Wrote the boy as the brunette in front of him went rigid before she busted out laughing. "Wow, Naru-kun, I never took you for the joking type," spoke Am till she stopped and looked at the boy's expression. He wore a face of seriousness and sadness. "I can't be," yelled Am as tears started to burst from her eyes like water from a broken dam. Am sobbed and mourned for several minutes, just crying on the younger boy's shoulder. She just let it all sink in. She would never ever see her beloved father again. Then something clicked in her mind as she suddenly stopped crying. She pulled her head back from Naruto's chest with a sad expression still on her face. "I'd you find, sniffle, a little, sniffle, brown-haired, sniffle, girl?" asked AM with an expression showing that she was on the brink of breaking. "Yeah, Fang and me found a little girl who ran out just as the stand burnt down. Don't worry, she's fine, AM-chan," wrote the boy as he was enveloped in another hug as AM continued to thank him for saving her last piece of family she had left. Meanwhile the boy just continued to rub her back comforting. The other 3 people watching the scene felt their heart melt at the scene before them. Wow, I never knew a boy had this much care for anything in them. Too bad he's so young. If he was a little older then I would definitely be after him. Though Mei as she watched the scene before her with a slight bit of jealousy. Well, you better be going back to your village. Back in my day we never talked to other shinobi that belonged to other villages unless it was in combat or we were allies. Spoke Ao as he started to reminisce for some strange reason. Naruto looked at the man and stared for a few seconds with a hard glare before looking back at AM. "Why are you with them?" wrote the boy. "I was walking to Kiri to get some supplies because our supplier didn't show up. Then I got ambushed and these people found and helped me ever since then," spoke the brunette with a grateful smile towards Mei. "Okay, will I see you in Konoha again?" "Oh, you're just in luck, Naru-kun. We are heading to Konoha to talk to your Hokage," spoke the woman with a seductive voice as she crossed her arms under her chest, making it appear even bigger than before and eliciting a blush from the blonde. "I'll see you in Konoha then," wrote the boy as he walked away to his ninja team. When Naruto got back to his team they looked at him before he gave "we'll talk later" look before they started to walk back to Konoha with Hana, Kurenai, Kiba, Shino, Hinata, Akamaru, and Hana's dog whose name Naruto still doesn't know. Naruto walked away from Wave with thoughts clouding his mind. His mind was going over AM and why she was with the Kiri-like ninja. Who killed Gato, and last, but definitely the least worrisome of all was why the hell Tazuna named his blasted bridge after him. When he asked before they left he merely said in hopes that it will be as resilient as the man it was named after. The man would shout and unfortunately it would make little to no sense to the boy who thought everyone knew how broken he was. He constantly thought everyone saw his darkness, his broken down spirit, and worst of all through his smile. However kind fate was, it was cruel to not allow anyone to see through his smile. No one knew his smiles he would parade around with were really him hiding behind a broken door, and because no one saw through a facade he broke. He broke to the point of near silence, save his close friends, and even they numbered only of 3. The young boy sighed as he straggled behind the rest of the leaping shinobi Kunoichi. He slowly looked up to see Kurenai slowing down till she was step for step with Naruto. "You okay, Naruto-san?" asked the woman as the boy nodded in response. "You sure? I mean you didn't even puke at the sight of the 4 headless figures." Even Shino the unmovable stone puked at the sight. Hell, even Hana and me cringed at the sight. Yet, you seem to loathe them for some reason, spoke the woman while staring at him. A shinobi always has secrets they keep buried, which are only discovered by 2 types of people. The most trusted to that shinobi or the most nosy of people. "Which are you?" wrote the boy as Kurenai managed to somehow read it and not pull a George of the Jungle. The woman felt a small pang of regret in her chest as she realized his words. She wouldn't want someone prying into her past, so why would anyone else? The woman quickly looked up before nodding and charging on ahead, not noticing Naruto switching with a shadow clone. The boy watched the fleeting figures before he turned around. The boy looked around then threw a shuriken at a tree. The instant the throwing star hit the tree 2 figures bursted from behind the tree. "Damn it, Alpha, how'd you sense us?" shouted Fang. "I smelled Hana's dog behind me somehow and it was stronger than it should be," wrote the boy as he squinted his eyes at the wolf. "What? You know how my smells?" shouted the wolf in disbelief. "Yes, rather strongly might I add," wrote the boy as he then looked at his mother. "Hey, Naruto-kun," spoke Kushina as she smiled slightly at him. "Hi mom." "Say Naruto-kun, what ya been doing, Dadabane?" "Just guarding a lazy bridge builder." "What have you been doing?" "Oh, just following Fang, Dadabane," replied the Redeed cheerfully. "Was that before or after you killed Gato?" the boy asked with a cold stare. The mere sight of his words made the woman tense up. "How'd you know?" asked the woman as her body was still tense. "Oh, the slash marks from his sword gave me a few clues to a swordsman, but the dead giveaway was the fact that he had red painted all over him. A signature of how you executed people back during the shinobi wars," wrote the boy as the woman slightly relaxed but still had her guard up for some strange reason. "You're very informed. So, what you gonna do now that you know I killed him?" asked the woman cryptically as she narrowed her eyes at Naruto. What happened next surprised her greatly. She had been expecting harsh words air riding. Even a disappointed look, anything but this. The boy that called her mom had hugged her. He let go and backed up a step, then smiled. Not one of his bullcrap smiles, but a sincere one of respect and gratitude. "I'm happy my mom is nice," wrote the boy before he hugged her once more. "Boy, Alpha, shouldn't you be trying to catch up to your team?" asked a beast as the boy's eyes widened in realization. Instantly, the boy turned and dashed away from them in hopes to catch up to his team. The boy finally caught up with his team to see Hana missing. The boy looked around for her till he felt a hand land on his shoulder. He quickly tensed up and looked over his shoulder to see Hana with him. "Hey Naruto-kun, how you doing? Say, don't you think Amai and Ice Fang have been spending a lot of time together?" asked Hana as she looked at the boy with a wide grin. Yeah, a little. Why?" "Oh, no reason. You know, aside from her moving slower recently, eating 3 times as much, gaining several pounds quickly, and smelling a lot more like Ice Fang," spoke Hana as her happy smile turned even sweeter, too sweet for him to feel comfortable. "Is that so?" wrote a boy as they somehow continued to jump from branch to branch without slamming into a tree. "Yeah, and the funny thing is when we took her in for an x-ray, we found something really funny. Apparently Amai is pregnant with 3 pups, and oddest of all is that Ice Fang has been around Amai liking her constantly." Any id spoke Hana till Naruto finally pulled a George of the Jungle. The boy grunted as he slowly pulled himself out of the indentation he made in the wood. He scowled as he heard a laughing Hana who was still jumping from branch to branch. Then she did the same damn thing. The brunette, who now was getting extremely intimate with a tree, grunted as she peeled herself from the tree. The 2 ninjas looked at each other before they started to laugh as each other. "Wow, didn't know Mr. Naruto-kun could laugh," spoke Hana as the boy shrugged while wiping tears from his eyes, still chuckling slightly. "Well, best we catch up to the others before they suspect us." "Where's Amai?" wrote the boy as he hadn't noticed the wolf. "Oh, Kiba's carrying her for me due to him saying something rather unpleasant. It was either him carry her or he carries me while I carry Amai," smirked Hana as the 2 started to gain onto the others, albeit slowly. By the time the 2 ninjas caught up to the others, they had arrived at the gate. At the gate, the guards eyed them slightly, then nodded as the group walked by them. Teammate, Hana, and Naruto started heading to the Hokage's tower, walking this time instead of running, due to them being winded slightly. As the group walked through some of the more densely populated areas, they began to notice glares sent their way. However, all of these glares were directed as Naruto, who seemed unfazed by them, as if not noticing them. The group proceeded faster than usual in these areas to escape the hateful glances, thus they arrived at the bright red tower in 15 minutes. As the group slowly started to go in, Naruto had a wicked idea. The group of ninja walked into the Hokage's office just as Naruto bursted into through an open window. He rolled in and then sprung up, standing with a peace sign for his fingers and an ear-splitting grin on his face. The sight of which elicited sweat drops from all around, except for the Hokage, who seemed reserved as if in a trance. Naruto looked around at the wall, skeptically noticing certain odd indentations in the wall, while making it look like he was admiring the beauty of the room. Shino seemed to raise an eyebrow in suspicion as the young boy looked around. While the others merely wrote it off as admiring an office he wanted one day. "How was the mission?" asked the Hokage calmly as he started reading another document. "We encountered several enemies, but we dealt with them fine. Unfortunately, we were unable to find out or to eliminate the enemy. Also, on the way back we found Gato impaled on a pole in the center of the completed bridge. Aside from that, we encountered no further problems," spoke Kurenai in her usually serious tone. A knock was heard at the door, followed by Sarutobi voicing a "come in." In walked a bearded jonin followed by 3 genin. "Hello Hokage-sama," spoke the new jonin who entered. The man looked at us, then his eyes focused on Kurenai, who still had her back to him. He quickly brought his gaze back to the Hokage. "Ah, Asuma, how did the mission go?" asked a Hokage, seeing the black pineapple-haired boy looking like he was about to fall asleep. "It went fine Hokage-sama, there were no problems with the mission," spoke the jonin now dubbed Asuma. "Good, then give me your written report as soon as possible," spoke Sarutobi as he moved his gaze back to Kurenai. "That goes for your team as well." Dismissed. But that statement, the 2 teams, Hana and Naruto, departed just as the young blonde ninja started to hear a yawn inside his head. "Hey Naruto-kun, what did I miss?" asked a familiar voice inside Naruto's head. "Only a few butt kickings and finding Aya-chan," voiced the boy in his head. "Oh, when did AM get a nickname, asked a red-headed vixen. I mean, forget it," thought Naruto, eliciting several laughs from Kyubi. "Stop spacing out Naruto-kun, or else you may walk in," spoke the redeed before she could finish. However, Naruto walked straight into someone. He fell back suddenly while hearing a light laugh from in front of him. Naruto looked up to see a familiar woman with auburn hair laughing slightly before she bent down. "If you wanted to feel them, you should have just asked Naruto-kun," spoke Mei seductively into his ear as she straightened up quickly. She looked at his face to see a large blush placed upon his visage. "That's mean, Mei-sama," shouted AM with a tinge of jealousy evident in her voice. Oh, perhaps someone's jealous? Asked Mei while looking at AM with a smile. I am not, I'm merely protecting my Nai-san. Spoke AM as Naruto's heart felt slightly heavier for some reason he couldn't begin to fathom at the moment. Oh, then you wouldn't mind if I did this, would you? Asked Mei as she suddenly shoved Naruto's head into her very ample cleavage, causing Naruto's already slightly red face to go beet red. Instantly, AM's face contorted in anger as she lunged at Mei, ripping Naruto from Mei's tight hug and shoving Naruto's head into her chest, eliciting the same reaction from the young blonde. Ooh, look who's defensive of her Ataudo. My, if I didn't know any better I would have thought you were in that relationship. Spoke Mei-san with a teasing grin on her face as AM let Naruto go and held a bright red blush on her face. Mei-sama, I think you're a little lol. Ow, shut up or I'll kill you. Spoke Mei, suddenly interrupting Ow while she wore a bittersweet smile. Yes, Mei-sama. Spoke the man as Mei turned back to Naruto. So, I'll see you later, handsome. Mei winked at the blushing boy as she walked by him, followed by Ao, the blue-haired boy, and a slightly jealous AM. Naruto turned abruptly and sprinted away as he still wore a bright red mask on his face that showed no signs of dissipating anytime soon. The boy was sprinting around the town trying to just find something to do besides train at the moment, as Kyubi had fallen back asleep due to being tired once more. Naruto had now slowed to a walk till he saw someone with a blank white mask look around before walking through a wall. Naruto looked around curiously before he followed. The young boy walked up to the wall before putting a hand on it and it going through the wall. Surprised by this, he walked into the wall to be greeted by a dark hallway that was eerily lit by a dull green light. Naruto looked around cautiously before descending a nearby flight of stairs. He heard faint whispers that only grew the farther down he went. Eventually he started to make out words and stopped to listen. Has been done, Danzo-sama. Good, you have done well. 6. Spoke the man who Naruto thought was named Danzo. Yes, Danzo-sama. Do you wish for me to attempt to win the uchiha over? Asked a person dubbed 6. No, the time is not right yet. You will begin converting the arrogant uchiha when the Chunin exams begin. Spoke Danzo calmly. Yes, Danzo-sama. Do you wish for me to eliminate the third? Asked a 6 person. No, he has yet to lose purpose. After all, no one has noticed the seals along the walls. Spoke Danzo as he seemed to gain a slight chuckle at the end. What do the seals do? That is none of your concern. I apologize, Danzo-sama. I merely wish to be informed on what they do. You know that I always wanted to learn about Fuinjutsu. Spoke 6 respectively. I see no harm in informing you then. They merely allow me to hear and see what the third Hokage does, as well as allowing me to use Shisui's eye to influence him. Yes, Danzo-sama. Spoke the masked man with a tone of awe and respect. You're dismissed. 6. Naruto stood there for a second till he heard a door open. Instantly, Naruto dashed up the stairs and out of the building, sprinting through the streets. He was deep in thought of what to feel, besides the obvious, to feel anger toward the man who caused most of his pain. Danzo. Naruto now knew he had to change his plan slightly, as Sarutobi wasn't the evil one now, it was definitely Danzo. Naruto might not have known how to get back at Danzo yet, but he was planning on how, starting right now. Thus, we find the young blonde going back to the Hokage's tower. Naruto had several things planned at the moment. The first of which would be to disperse the seals in the tower and then to place anti-seals. Naruto entered the building and stood in front of the door that was deathly quiet. Naruto knocked and no answer came. After several minutes, Naruto opened the door slightly to see no one present. Then Naruto realized why no one was in the room. Mei was talking to Sarutobi with the rest of the council. Which means two things. The first was he had the room for himself for at least 10 minutes if they were walking back. The second is that Danzo probably can't see him right now. Naruto walked into the room and quickly unsealed a brush with ink and some paper. He quickly went to work on undoing as many seals as possible. He managed to finish them all with a minute to spare as he saw the Hokage walk up to the tower. Naruto smirked as he jumped out the window onto the floor. Naruto landed just as he heard the door shut. Naruto smirked as he had done one extra thing. He had placed a seal on the Hokage's stamp that would copy onto his hand and negate any mind control influence techniques of any form. Naruto smirked as he walked down the street away from the Hokage's tower just as the cat Anbu appeared. Naruto, the Hokage requires your presence. Stated Yugao in front of Naruto as he merely nodded in response before turning to the Hokage's tower and walking back to it. When Naruto was in front of the Hokage's office once more, he took a deep breath. Then Naruto knocked and heard a come in. Stated from behind the door. Naruto walked in and saw Mei, Ao, and Chijiro standing in front of the Hokage's desk. They parted slightly to show a new Sarutobi. This one looked slightly younger as he had lost at least 20 of his 50 wrinkles, and his eyes showed deep sorrow. "Hello Naruto, Mei-san here has requested the assistance of several ninja, and I have decided you shall join a team to aid her," spoke the man with a slight amount of depression evident. "Why would I lead a group? Wouldn't a jonin or an Anbu member be better?" wrote the boy as he was slightly confused. "Yes, they would, however due to events I have witnessed and have heard I have decided that you would be crucial in assisting the rebel leader in their war," spoke the man as his voice seemed to gain a bit of apprehension. "Okay, Hokage-sama," wrote the boy as the Hokage's eyes seemed to grow sadder at this. "You will meet Mei-san at the gate in an hour. Please, stay behind a minute as we have some things to discuss," spoke the man as the others walked out. When the door shut, the Hokage flicked his hands and instantly 3 Anbu members left, as well as some seals starting to glow. "Naruto, I am deeply sorry for what I have done. I don't know why, but I did not intend to make your life a living hell." "Oh, and how did you do this?" the young boy asked, trying to get some answers. "I am very sorry for killing Tucci and destroying the stand, I'm sorry for not defending you from the villagers, and worst of all, I am extremely sorry for not being there in your times of pain. I know it won't fix anything, but please forgive me. You don't have to do it right away, but please allow me the chance to, starting from now on," spoke the old man as he had a few tears trailing down his cheeks. "I have yet to forgive you, however you still have a chance to amend the mistakes made. Pray you don't make another," wrote the boy as the mood lightened slightly. "Thank you Naruto, now on to the mission. I am sending you an Anko. As well as several Anbu," spoke the man as he seemed to be calm now. "Why am I the only one below Jonin?" asked the boy as he narrowed his eyes slightly. "I saw some of your fights, and you can definitely handle this, however I cannot increase your rank unless you complete 3S ranked missions, or I am present to say that you should increase in rank, therefore the council on both civilian and ninja will not allow me to make you a higher rank. Now you are dismissed," spoke Hiruzen calmly as he smiled at the boy who went out to his base to get supplies and then meet his team. Naruto arrived at the gate to find Anko waiting with 6 other people who wore masks. The 7 people turned around to see Mei and her team approach as she looked around for the last member of her group. "Hey cat, where's our last member? I hope it isn't some idiotic jonin," stated Anko as she looked around. "He's captured the heart of one of my ninja," teased Mei as Am's cheeks went red with embarrassment. "Oh, I wonder who this Casanova is," wondered Anko teasingly as her and Mei laughed together. Naruto walked up to the laughing group just as Anko turned to see him. "Hey, Naruto-kun, what you doing here, are you waiting for your team for another mission?" asked Anko as she looked around for Hana and others. "Nope, I appear to be the late one," wrote a boy, shocking Anko and most of the Anbu. "Stop lying Naruto-san. Why would a genin be put on a team for an S-ranked mission?" spoke a bare-masked man. "Mei-sama, would you kindly explain it to them?" wrote Naruto with a slightly smug look on his face. "Yes, Naruto-kun is on this mission as both the Hokage thought he should be on the mission and my personal request," spoke Mei calmly as she eyed the group. "No way can we send Naruto-kun into combat, he could be killed," shouted Anko protectively. "Oh, you worry about Naruto, but no one else. Perhaps you think of him more than a fellow ninja, Anko-chan," spoke Mei teasingly, attempting to change the topic. "Not a chance, I should be the one to ask if you are a Shotokan though, after all, who asks for a 12-year-old to accompany them to a war front," spoke Anko, teasing Mei back. "The Hokage did tell Naruto that he would be on this mission with you, Anko. He is on our team," spoke Yugao, the cat-masked Anbu, calmly as Anko and the other Anbu looked at her like she was crazy. "Now that that is settled, why don't we start heading to Kiri?" spoke Mei calmly as everyone nodded and followed her out of the village. Naruto was looking around as the group of ninja he was traveling with were jumping from branch to branch, talking amongst themselves. Naruto continued to look around, watching his back because of his guilt. He was merely guilty about forgetting to tell Ice Fang that he was leaving. Then out of nowhere Naruto saw a flash of dark colors hit him. He rolled off the tree branch down to the ground, alerting the rest of the people. "The funk are you doing, Alpha? You left me with her, again," shouted the beast at him. "You're lucky the Hokage assigned us to this task," spoke a red-headed woman who wore the mask of a dragon. "Who are you? I have never seen a dragon Anbu before," spoke the cat-masked woman with squinted eyes. "I am the Hokage's person assassin. That is all you need to know, cat," spoke Kushina as she pulled a paper out and handed it over to Yugao. Yugao eyed the paper carefully, then sighed. "Understood, Taichu," spoke Cat, getting wide eyes from everyone. Captain, why did you call Dragon Taichu?" asked Bear. "Hokage's orders state she is in charge of this mission," spoke Yugao calmly as she handed the paper back. "Naruto, Anko, here are masks for you," spoke Kushina as she handed Naruto his mask he wore into the village and handed Anko a viper's mask. Naruto grinned at the sight of his mask. "Let's move out, people," shouted Mei at seeing that everyone was ready. At the command of the auburn-haired woman, the ninja set off once more for Kiri. "Let's set up camp for the night," spoke Mei, much to Naruto and Chijuro's appreciation. As the group started to set up tents, Mei was still looking through all of her scrolls. "Damn it," shouted Mei as she threw a scroll at a tree. "What's wrong, Mei-sama?" asked Ao. "I left my damn tent back at Konoha. Anyone have an extra tent?" asked Mei as she rubbed her temples. "No," chorused all of the camp minus Naruto, who was holding up his whiteboard with a very large and bold no. "Okay, Naruto, how old are you?" asked Mei as she walked up to the blonde. "Old enough to kill," wrote a boy, getting a sweat drop from everyone who read it. "You're not sharing a tent with Naruto-kun," spoke Anko while glaring at the woman. "Then where am I supposed to sleep?" asked Mei with a frown. "You could always sleep with Chijuro," spoke Kushina nonchalantly. "You can't expect me to sleep with a 16-year-old," shouted Mei angrily. "Why does it have to be Naruto though?" asked Yugao with a slight edge to her tone. "He's young, and I won't have to worry about him giving in to his beastly desires," replied Mei, as if everyone should have realized that. "You know you can always sleep with a female, and besides Naruto's 13. Shouted Dragon. 12. "Sorry, 12 going on 13, and I'm more worried about you giving in to beastly desires than young Naruto-kun over there." "What, I would never," replied Mei, feigning innocence as she covered her mouth with one hand in fake shock. "Mei-sama, if you just so happen to touch him like that at any point," spoke Am eerily as a Hanyu mask appeared behind her and a knife in her right hand. "Calm down, Am-chan. I was just joking. Just for that joke you will now be sleeping in my tent with me," spoke Am as she dragged the rebel leader, who was whining and pouting. The Anbu who watched this entire thing were laughing their asses off at the scene of the almighty rebel leader being reduced to a child. After that little event, the group went to sleep with everyone taking a 1-hour shift of watching the camp. Night passed rather uneventfully, and the sun rose an hour before the ninja, who were now sprinting across the ocean. The next day was rather uneventful, except for the woos from owls in the night that were accompanied by the occasional howl. The group had traveled by foot on the water that day and made camp on a nearby island. That day they woke at the island that was a few hundred meters away from Kiri, and all they saw was mist. This immediately put them on edge, as they knew at Kiri some fog, but it was never this heavy unless there was a fight going on. Ice Fang started to rapidly sniff the air to see if their theory was correct, and it was. "Hey Alpha, there's a funking fight going on. Let's go, I wanna kill some little shits," spoke the dog, getting deadpan looks from people still not believing that a dog could have such a foul mouth. "It's up to you, Mei-sama," spoke Kushina calmly as she eyed the fog that would light up colors of blue, purple, or orange every so often. "Let's go, I want to see how effective your team is, Dragon." "Yes, Cat, your team is to proceed first while my team provides support," spoke Dragon with authority. "You heard Taichu, let's go," spoke Yugao. Her team started to sprint across the water. When Naruto finally broke through the fog into the fight, he stopped along with the rest of the team. The reason why is that they were watching a fight between 10 ninja, 8 on Kiri's side and 2 on the rebels. However, what made their blood boil was that Kuma was here and helping Kiri defeat the rebels. "Bear and I will ambush the loyalists while Viper provides support. Wolf, you will watch for stragglers and clean up the mess. Go," spoke Cat softly as the team started to execute the orders. Yugao drew her sword as she appeared behind one of the ninjas and cut him from behind, instantly killing the man. Bear flashed through hand signs before shouting fire style. "Great fireball jutsu." Instantly, a great ball of fire emerged from the trees and engulfed 3 ninja who were unaware. The first ninja, one who wore Kumo's headband, charged Yugao with a katana of his own. As he swung down, Yugao dodged right, allowing 3 kunai behind her to find a new home in the man's neck. Viper smiled as she saw that blood was pouring out of his neck and mouth as he writhed in agony before dying. Naruto watched as his team killed 5 when the other 3 turned to run. Instantly, Naruto went into action as he shoeshined across the field unnoticed before giving chase. Naruto smirked under his mask before it dropped into a frown when he saw the 3 were fighting Ice Fang. "Come at me, you little shits. See if you can take me down," shouted the wolf as he dodged a kunai before lunging and landing on a Kiri ninja. Ice Fang quickly overpowered the man and mauled his mercilessly, making the other 2 back away in fear. "Blind style." Ancient Gale, a voice whispered that was heard by everyone nearby. The whisper was quickly followed by a light breeze that steadily built up before a dragon of wind appeared and engulfed one ninja. The ninja who was caught in the maw of the dragon instantly turned into an explosion of blood before the jutsu dispelled. The final ninja backed up in extreme fear as a small puddle could be seen underneath him. "Careful Alpha, this funking little shit just dropped some funking water, he's trying to lure us in before using a water jutsu from behind us," spoke Ice Fang as he eyed the smelly substance in front of him. Just as Ice Fang finished speaking, however, three senbon embedded themselves in the Kiri man's neck, rendering him unconscious. He will crack rather quickly, hopefully he has a little information to help us. Spoke Mei from behind the downed man as Shijuro walked up to the man who smelled like piss and grabbed his collar and dragged him, trying his best not to touch the man any more than needed. Didn't think those Kumo bastards would support Kiri though. Spoke Falcon with disgust as he kicked a dead Kumo nin. Probably just to attain more bloodlines. Spoke Bear as he walked towards the main group. Mei quickly looked over the unconscious ninja before she saw some papers hanging out of the pocket of his vest. She walked over to the man and quickly grabbed a paper and read over them. Instantly her stern face turned into a gleeful grin. These poor saps were commissioned to aid Kiri and were to arrive today, meaning they are currently on time. She looked over the files once more before scowling. "What's wrong, Mei-sama?" asked AM calmly. "The group sent to aid Kiri only has a resemblance to one ninja here or at the rebel base, heck, take away a few things and they could be twins," spoke Mei while still scowling. "Who resembles a ninja that died today, Mei-sama?" asked Shijuro meekly as everyone nodded. "Naruto, turn around. We need to apply some contacts to you." "No, we are not sending Naruto alone," spoke Yugao and Viper in tandem, making both look at each other before giggling slightly. "It's either send him alone or we lose a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and as per orders I get to assign you to the missions I need done. Naruto, take off your mask and put these in." Naruto merely nodded, much to everyone's shock, as he removed his mask and put the contacts in. "What is my backstory, Mei-sama, and I don't think I can do this as my speaking problem," wrote the young boy. "In the file, the boy who you are impersonating is just like you, however he does talk quite a bit. It says that he wears black lines much like yours on each cheek to signify how many years he has served, and he's up to 3. Your personality seems similar. So all you need to do is talk and can easily pass as one of the Kumo nin. Here, follow the directions and good luck," spoke Mei with finality as she handed Naruto a Kumo forehead protector and the orders. The Konoha Anbu were furious, however they had no choice to obey or be tried for treason. "Will do, Mei-sama," spoke Naruto, earning a gasp from the ninja at his deep voice. Mei had a little blush on her face due to his voice seeming to be music to her ears. Naruto quickly looked at the orders before turning and sprinting off into the distance. "So, help me, if Naruto is killed, the price will come out of your hide, Mei-sama." Kushina spoke Mei's honorific with an edge as she glared at the woman. "He should be able to handle himself according to AM," spoke Mei without a care in the world, however inside she was slightly concerned for the blonde as he had grew on her from AM's dozens of stories about the blonde. Mei sighed quietly before the group resumed the course to the rebel base to resupply. Naruto was sprinting on the ground as he didn't want to go from branch to branch due to the thick fog around him. "I'm not happy about this, Naru-kun," spoke Kyubi within Naruto's head. "I know Kaiu-chan, but it's part of my mission. If it helps gain the trust of Mei, then I have one extra person supporting me in my plan. I know, and when you guys come out on top you will have a village backing you, but I just have a bad feeling about all this. You worry too much, Kaiu-chan, and it doesn't compliment your beauty to have an expression other than one of happiness," spoke Naruto, eliciting a deep blush and a bright smile from the nine-tailed fox. "Pay attention, 300 yards to the right, one patrol, 700 yards behind them is a large camp," spoke Kyubi in a serious voice. "Yes, Kaiu-chan. See you when I check in," spoke Naruto as he cut the mental link. "Alt, state your name, intruder," spoke Akumo Jonin with a very big build of muscle, like serious muscle builder status. "My name is Kaminari, An. Thunder, rank Chunin. Reporting into camp," spoke Naruto as he straightened up. The man who asked for Naruto's name opened his eyes in surprise as he quickly descended to Naruto and stood in front of him. "Where is the rest of your squad?" asked the man as he started to grow suspicious. "We were ambushed on our way here by the rebel leader. I barely made it out alive due to the squad leader telling me to report back to you immediately. Here are my papers, sir," spoke Naruto in a very soldier-type style. The man quickly looked over the papers and sighed deeply. "Damn, you are cleared of suspicion, Kaminari. Follow me back to base to give a full report." "Yes," spoke Naruto as they began leaping into a very fortified citadel that resembled a village, albeit much smaller, and instead of buildings it had tents. The large man led Naruto into the camp and straight to a bright blue and white command tent. "Eri-sama, B-sama and Yujito-sama, young Kaminari has arrived alone," spoke the man. "Okay, bring him in, and then you are dismissed for the day, D-san, cause Kumo has A, B, and C, so why not D?" spoke the man in the center who had darker skin and white hair covering one eye in a very relaxed tone of voice. "Hi," spoke D quickly as he walked out briskly. "Kaminari reporting in," spoke Naruto as he stood at attention. "Give us the report, Kaminari," spoke the blonde-haired woman. When we first made land at 8 AM this morning we met with the border patrol in the middle of a skirmish with the rebels. We managed to bring their strong 16 down to 2, and then we were pushed back by the appearance of Shijuro, Ao, and the rebel leader Mei. Due to quickly being overwhelmed by their jutsu, the squad leader ordered me to report to you with the information. Spoke Naruto in an emotionless voice as he stood rigid. Damn those rebels. Good work Kaminari, report back in 1 hour to get your new assignment. Spoke man with white hair covering one eye. Go out before we blow your doubts, bowed our wicked shouts. Sorry, I am very bad at rhyming, so I am trying my hardest. Rapped the blonde-haired man, eliciting sweat drops from everyone in the tent. Naruto decided to drop it and turned away to set up his tent while debating over his next move. Naruto reported back 1 hour later exactly as he waited by the flaps. He heard an enter and obeyed. As soon as Naruto entered, however, he was immediately on guard. Standing in front of him was the people he learned to be called Yugito and B, both with stern expressions as they stared into the boy's soul. He quickly glanced behind him to notice seals preventing anyone from hearing what was said, and worst of all, several seals preventing anyone from exiting or entering without the caster's permission. Naruto quickly gulped before staring into their eyes with the same gaze as them. So Kaminari, I know I haven't seen you before, but I know for a fact from the papers you handed us that you didn't have chakra that felt like B-Sama's and mine. Spoke Yugito calmly. Yeah, ain't nobody got chakra like Yugito's procta. Rapped the one man as he quickly whipped a book out and wrote something down before closing it again. I'm afraid I have no idea what you two are talking about. Spoke Naruto as he was still rigid. Well, he placed one hand behind him and started fumbling with a seal under his shirt. We know you house a Bijuu just like us, so spill it, spy. Which one do you house? Spoke Yugito with venom as she glared at the young blonde. What are you two talking about? I've never been the jailer of any tailed beast. Shouted Naruto furiously, still trying to act his part. Yo Yugito, the fool is messing with his back, yo. Rapped the man again, failing even worse than his other attempts. Yeah, my back's been itching since the battle for some reason. Spoke Naruto quietly as he took a step back. Turn around. Spoke B seriously for some reason without rapping. Naruto hesitated for a second before he slowly turned around. Yugito, get me Nalito. Rapped B suddenly. Damn it, you know his name is Noel. Shouted Yugito as she clicked a button on her hip. Instantly a white-haired man stepped in. You called Yugito-sama. Spoke the man calmly. Yes, Noel, we need you to take a look at young Kaminari is back here. Spoke Yugito, in which the man nodded. He looked it over before sighing. Apparently the rebels, I presume, stuck a tracking seal onto his back with the frequency at the highest, which coincides with a Bijuu's chakra. Spoke Noel as he looked up and B nodded to him. Noel quickly turned and departed after resetting the seals. Now that we have that cleared up, you will be in a team with me and B, as we will be heading to take out a rebel encampment. Spoke Yugito in a very serious tone. Why would you take me on a high-stake mission like this? You could have taken someone better, couldn't you? Asked Naruto as he grew suspicious. In the file it didn't have anything on your affinities and jutsu list, so this is merely a test run to see where to put you in this war. Spoke Yugito as B was sitting in a corner writing in a small book while nodding. Okay, when do we set out? Naruto asked as his worry subsided. We leave at 8 tomorrow, at the Marrow. Shouted out B. Why are we leaving at the Bone? Asked Naruto as he was still confused. Just leave him be. Spoke Yugito as she eyed the man before turning to Naruto. Need anything, Yugito-sama? Wondered the blonde under her calculating gaze. I just wanted to apologize to you about suspecting you as a spy, but you must understand though that we need to take the utmost precautions. Yugito as she dipped her head slightly in an apologetic manner. Not a problem, Yugito-sama, I completely understand, and don't bow. It doesn't befit a beautiful woman to bow her head. Spoke Naruto with a grin, earning a light blush from Yugito as she suddenly had a memory about a blonde smiling at her in the past before running away from Samanbu. Keep talking like that and you might end up seeing more of me, cooed Yugito teasingly. Great, not another Anko or Mei. I deal with those two enough as is, I don't need a third. Thought Naruto as he bowed and walked out of the tent. Good thinking on that chakra suppression seal, Naru-kun, spoke Kyubi as Naruto felt her smile in his mindscape. Thank you, Kyu-chan. Say how much longer till I can learn your name? Asked the boy. Remember, you need to be Chunin. Spoke Kyubi as she giggled slightly in Naruto's mindscape. Say, what do you think about all of this that is going on? Well, you might come out with more than one ally if you know what I mean. Teased Kyubi as she laughed lightly again. Really, I seriously doubt people want to be with a 12-year-old. I mean, most of the people you are talking about are at least 6 years older than me. Spoke Naruto calmly. And you think that will stop them? I mean, I'm at least several hundred years old in human years, but that hasn't stopped us. Spoke Kyubi. I know what I don't know anything anymore. spoke Naruto while shaking his head as he walked to his tent to collect his supplies. But now that we have that taken care of, when will you go get the blood for me again? I should be able to visit Tsunade after this mission. I'm sorry that it will take a while. Thought Naruto as he entered his tent. Not a problem Narukoi. Just remember what you promised after I tell you my name. Spoke Kyubi as she teased him once more. Honestly I expect this from Anko or Mei, hell even Yugito now, so why are you jumping on that bandwagon? Shouted Naruto in his head as he walked out of his average tent geared up once more for his mission. I'm part fox for a reason. Shouted Kyubi with a slight pout. Naruto sighed as he went to the gate as he hid in a nearby tree. Naruto watched the gate as he observed the people who went about their day as he took notes for his report he would send later. He continued his observation as he wrote on a small scroll before a group of 3 walked in with a red-headed female, yelling at the man who had a sucker in his mouth, while the busty blonde just had an uninterested look in her eyes. The blonde woman looked around till her eyes settled on Naruto's tree. She squinted her eyes, and then a pair of birds flew out of the top of the tree. The woman let her gaze linger for a breath longer before turning back to her team. Naruto stared at the group intently from further within the tree as he noted that the blonder female was very perceptive. He smirked before he gently let himself down before heading towards the gate. Halt, why are you exiting the camp? Asked one of the guards in a deep gruff voice. Going out to train. Spoke Naruto in a monotone voice as the guard eyed him. There are plenty of training grounds in the camp, so why do you need to train outside of the camp? Asked the inquisitive guard. A shinobi's most powerful tool is deception, whether in regards to an ally or a foe. Spoke Naruto sagely as the guard smirked. Perfect answer boy, get back to camp by sunrise, lest we think you defected. Spoke the man as he stepped aside with a smile still adorning his scruffy face. Naruto nodded before he walked out. When he was out of sight from the people he smiled as he flipped through several hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Spoke the boy as he bit his thumb and slammed his palm to the ground. Smoke appeared and when it cleared a small dark black wolf about the size of a shepherd sat. Yo, you called Naruto? Asked the small beast with no respect present in his voice, although no disrespect either. Yes, I need you to deliver this report to Yugao-chan. Spoke Naruto as he handed the small beast a sealed scroll. I'm on it like Sonic. Rapped the beast as Naruto grew a tick mark on his head. I told you no rapping, especially since one of the leaders here raps just as bad. Shouted Naruto angrily as he heard a twig snap behind him. Instantly, Naruto got into a defensive stance as he glared in the direction of the twig. Naruto stood still as he opened his listened intently for any other sounds. Suddenly a small stream of water with the head of a dragon weaved through the trees in Naruto's direction. Deliver the message Yami. Shouted Naruto as he dodged a dragon that crashed into a tree behind him. Naruto glanced back briefly to see Yami gone and then looked back to see a team of 4 ninja approaching him. We must have found the base people. Let's take out the runt and then report back to Mei-sama. Spoke a middle-aged man as a chorus erupted behind him. Wait, you're part of the rebel forces? Asked Naruto as he started dodging several water jutsus. Yeah, you Kumo scumbag. Shouted a female as she spat several orbs of water at Naruto. Hey, I'm a spy for you guys, so hold your damn water. Shouted Naruto as he continued to dodge the shots. You're just lying you Kumo bastard. Shouted another man as he rode a wave towards Naruto. Naruto dodged the wave before being hit by 3 water bullets in the back, thus he went flying into a tree. We got him, now time to finish him. Shouted the leader. I tried to play nice. Now I don't care what Mei says, cause I will bath in your blood. Spoke a red-eyed Naruto who had slits for eyes as he stood up slowly. Just as Naruto rose the blonde woman from the gate stumbled upon them where she watched Naruto intently. Suddenly Naruto disappeared from sight. Where the hell did he go? Shouted the woman as the 4 people were back to back now. Silence follows death, death is harbinger of release. Yet, death can't release me. I release death unto others. Whispered a ghastly voice from all around as they couldn't locate where it originated from, even Samui couldn't figure out where it came from. Suddenly one of the men fell to his knees and then fell as his head rolled from the stump on the man's body. The 3 people looked at him in fear before they started looking around frantically for where the attack came from. Come out you coward. Shouted the woman with fear. Whirlpool style. Reaper's rainfall. Whispered a barely audible voice into the wind as only one person in the group of back-to-back people heard it, not even the blonde watching heard it. As soon as the words were uttered clouds began to thunder overhead as a light rain poured from the sky. No one paid attention to it as they hadn't noticed it was only raining in the small clearing that the 3 remaining people were standing. Suddenly, the rain began to pick up in force before the drops of harmless water turned into swirling needles that pierced the 3 people's skin repeatedly in various areas, going straight through them. The 3 bloody masses of flesh that were perforated suddenly fell with a dull thud as the rain cleared. Samui stared at the scene with a fear-stricken face as she watched a young boy walk up, decapitate what she thought was the heads of the people, and walk back to camp unfazed of what happened. She was terrified and was almost ready to barf. And she had killed dozens of people before while being at the young age of 13, this person had just slaughtered them in such a gruesome way, yet he didn't even bat an eye at it. She was beginning to question if he was crazy or not. As she saw him walk away however, she slowly followed him as to not alert him, even though he knew she was stalking him. Naruto walked back into the encampment with the 4 heads tied to the back of his pants. The heads drew several pairs of eyes onto him, as many were slightly pale at the sight of 3 of those heads. However, Naruto walked by without a care in the world, as his eyes were that of a joyful man who just did something fun. Now many would think he was sick and demented, however Naruto was merely happy to take his stress on something animate. He turned his head as he heard whispering from around. Naruto turned his head in the direction of the loudest whispering to see a small group of battle-tested ninja talking rather loudly, so he could overhear the conversation. He probably just cut the heads off the corpses. I mean, there isn't any way to make 3 heads look like those dangling things. Spoke a smaller man. I bet only one of those are heads, and probably of an already dead man he found laying around. Spoke a woman in her early 20s. Naruto watched them for a moment longer before we briskly walked to the main tent. Naruto was seething at how he was being treated. He may not even know who the hell those people are, but he sure as hell was going to give them their dues. Haminari reporting in. Shouted Naruto loudly in front of the tent. He heard an enter and walked in. I wasn't supposed to see you till tomorrow. Did you miss me that badly? Teased Yugito as she put her arms under her bust, making it appear larger than usual, although Naruto held a straight face. Reporting in on finding a squad of 4 bloodline ninja outside of the camp as they were conducting recon. I engaged the 4 and took their heads as trophies. Spoke Naruto as he untied the heads and placed them on the table. Good job, here's payment for a B rank mission. Though I have one question, Kaminari. Spoke Yugito as she handed Naruto the boy a bag of cash. Yes? Asked Naruto as he awaited the question. Why do you seem agitated? Asked Yugito calmly as she looked over the boy's tense form as his eyes held anger. Several ninjas in the camp were discrediting me, saying that they were probably dead before I had decapitated them. Spoke Naruto calmly as Yugito nodded with a smirk. How about I have a spar between you and each of these ninja, granted you can identify them. Spoke Yugito as she put a file before Naruto. Naruto looked through it, tabbing 3 pages before handing it back to Yugito. The blonde smirked at the 3 as she also hated them. I will tell everyone about the spar that will take place in half an hour, and this allows me to see some of your abilities before the mission too. Spoke Yugito as she handed a note to a man at her side who quickly went out of the tent. I suggest you follow me to the training ground as 30 minutes tends to pass by relatively quickly. Spoke Yugito with a smirk as she strode out of the tent and away from the gate. Naruto followed Yugito down to a river bend where she saw a stump in the center of a clearing. Instantly an image of an area similar appeared in Naruto's head and brought a frown to his face as it ticked him off even more than he already was. Naruto turned as he began to lightly jog around the field to make sure his muscles were relatively warm and not stiff. Naruto turned after a few minutes with a light sweat on his brow to see the 3 people that held his ire at the moment. I have called you 3 here to fight against Kaminari in a test to show me where he lies in our ranks. Spoke Yugito as B and Derry walked up with several other ninja wanting to see the fight, especially a short-haired blonde who sat in a nearby tree watching while her teammates were arguing again. Ha, we'll show you his place in the dirt for taking credit he didn't earn. Shouted one man. Hey Chijin, you gonna get a beating from a non-cheatin' in. Rapped B much to everyone's ire as he rapidly turned while writing in his book, earning a sweat drop from several people in the crowd. All is fair in war. Spoke Derry in a lax voice. What about love, teased Yugito with a playful smile. And love, yo Soppus. An. Meant to spell is like that, rapped once more. Can we just get this started? Asked Naruto as he was impatient. What, you want to be humiliated that badly, boy? Asked the female ninja in the group he was about to fight. Now Naruto, remember no using Ukeke Genkai. Spoke Kyubi sternly. I remember. Spoke Naruto with a pout. Now Naruto, you will take on all 3 of them, so without further ado. Begin. Shouted Yugito as she jumped back. Lightning style. False darkness, shouted the woman as she spat a long string of white light straight ahead that crackled with rage as Naruto jumped out of the way, which in turn made her jutsu strike the tree behind him, turning it to ash. Blind style. Vacuum sphere. Shouted Naruto as several spheres of furiously spinning wind sprinted towards the 3 people, catching the woman off guard and rapidly cutting her flesh, making her fall unconscious due to Naruto holding back quite a bit. Then Naruto heard a earth style. Earth spear. Shouted a man who slammed a fist into Naruto's back, thrusting him into the ground. Just before Naruto hit the ground he flipped and rolled before taking a slip of paper from his vest. Sealing technique. Black aura. Shouted Naruto as suddenly everything in the close vicinity of him was blown back. Instantly Naruto went through several hand signs before whispering water release. Water fang bullet. Suddenly a large portion of the nearby lake rose and struck one ninja, knocking him out cold, as well as giving him a nice cold power rinse to make sure he was squeaky clean. The final ninja recovered and instantly charged Naruto as they started to go into taijutsu. They were surprisingly even till Naruto jumped back and drew his katana. The man he was fighting drew his blade and they then engaged in a trade of blows as they parried each other with tenacity. Naruto suddenly saw an opening as he rolled under an overexerted swing from his opponent and he then turned swiftly, slamming the flat of the blade against the man's back, sending him flying headfirst into a tree, also unconscious. An ninjutsu and kinjutsu specialist with background in fuinjutsu. Whispered Yugito to herself in thought as she stared at the boy she found strangely familiar. Naruto looked back at the crowd to see Yugito in thought as she stared intently at him. Lately he had felt he had seen Yugito before and now it was getting clearer. He knew he had traveled to Kumo, but he didn't know if he had seen her. Naruto sighed, letting it go before smiling once more in victory. Samui watched the entire battle, still not believing the capabilities of the enigma in front of her. The most surprising of all though was that Kiri and Amoy were no longer fighting, but were now eyeing the blonde with curiosity. Till Amoy chose to speak. What if he's a spy for the enemy, then he attacks us in our sleep? And then Amoy started to speak rapidly before Kiri smacked him hard. If he was a funking spy then he wouldn't be known by half the camp. Shouted Kiri as she hit Amoy once more, knocking him to the ground and then began to kick and step on him rapidly. You two are so not cool. Spoke Samui in an aloof voice as she stared intently at Naruto. Suddenly, said boy felt a shiver go down his back and he whipped around quickly. He locked eyes with Samui and for once she saw his eyes. They were aged far more than they should have been, it was like she was looking at Derry. The only big difference between the two was one was as old as the yes said, yet the other shouldn't have been. Samui studied him for a long minute as Naruto turned after several seconds. Samui didn't know why, but he just intrigued her so much. Naruto walked next to the already leaving Yugito as they had some things to discuss. I am very surprised with your capabilities, Kaminari. I can't wait till our mission tomorrow. Spoke Yugito with an impressed tone of voice. Why can't we leave earlier? I'm getting rather impatient. Whispered Naruto under his breath as he heard a certain Riti giggling at his desire to do something that wasn't as mundane at the moment. If you really want to go we can go now, you know, just you and me, Yugito whispered into the boy's ear huskily as she started walking backwards with her arms behind her back. Once Naruto recovered he smiled. Let's move. Whispered the boy as they both disappeared. Suddenly they were outside of the camp, sprinting on the floor so they wouldn't be seen as easily. They sprinted for about another 5 minutes before coming across a small group of tents. I'll start it. Whispered Yugito as Naruto nodded while he waited. Mouse hairball, whispered Yugito as she quickly spit out a mouse-shaped black figure that was engulfed in blue flames. It flew forward before splitting apart rapidly and setting ablaze the entire camp while causing disorder with the explosions. Naruto took that as the beginning, so he surged forward with his katana in hand. He quickly weaved in and out of the soldiers, each one he passed had a long cut on their chest as they would fall with hazy eyes moments later. Naruto turned quickly to see Yugito had her fingernails now extended cat claws raking across several shinobi. Naruto knew this was probably wrong for several reasons, but he found her hot with her predator-like look upon her face as flames flickered behind her, followed by blood. He knew it was wrong to think that of an enemy, a leader at that, and one who he was aiding in slaughtering an enemy. They quickly began weaving in and out of the disorganized group. Naruto locked eyes with the average-sized man who had managed to reorganize part of the camp and was now charging at Naruto. Naruto smirked before he sheathed his sword at his side sheath. Earth Squallieto, whispered Naruto as he swiftly drew his blade, and from his blade surged forth a storm of earth that ripped the man and several behind him to pieces at the sheer intensity of the shards that flew. Yugito saw it and smirked. So that's how he put the holes in their head. Thought Yugito as she smiled slightly to the boy who had at least 2, maybe 3 affinities. Knock one out and return to base. Whispered Yugito as she was next to Naruto in a second before disappearing as he felt a group of ninja approaching from in front of him. So deciding quickly he dodged a katana swing very quickly as he grabbed the man's arm, bending it backwards, snapping it out of its socket and then kicking one leg to dislocate the knee. The man quickly howled in pain as Naruto chopped the back of his neck, rendering him unconscious, and Naruto hoisted him over his shoulder before sprinting to catch up to Yugito. They finally got back to the base with the 2 hostages. Yugito had a female and Naruto had a male. They locked eyes with each other, both wearing very happy grins. Amanari, if you keep fighting like that I may have to be with you on all of your assignments, especially if they become any more elegant than before. I may just have to keep you around me more often. Kyuubi as she grabbed the man on Naruto's shoulder and walked into camp, leaving behind a flushed Naruto as Kyubi was sending him very special images. Naruto collected himself after a few seconds and he was definitely in need of a very cold shower. So the young boy set off to find the nearest lake or waterfall to cool off. Naruto was jumping from branch to branch in search of either a clearing or water when he suddenly came upon a waterfall. Naruto dropped down and walked towards the cascade when he saw a figure's silhouette through the white water. Naruto quickly placed his mask on his face and drew his katana as he slowly. Naruto began to take careful steps backwards with utter silence. He hadn't felt the wrath of an angry woman yet and he sure as hell didn't want to. He had already seen what they were capable of. Elsewhere. The white-haired man suddenly sneezed on his notebook he had in hand. Crap, muttered the man as he began to furiously wipe the snot off of his precious notes, never noticing the aura around him. He looked up from his hiding spot in the tree to see several female-clothed ninjas with kunai or other various weapons in hand with sickly sweet smiles on their faces. "Hello, Jiraiya-sama," spoke a black-haired jounin who had a really big knife in hand. "Kurenai-chan, haha, come on, I was just doing my research," spoke the white-haired Sannin as he began to slowly creep back until he suddenly heard demonic illusion hell viewing technique. A few moments later Jiraiya could be seen curled up into a ball on the ground, shivering with wide eyes and a very distraught face as he whispered, "Please Itachi-sama, no more, no more, no more. I don't need to have a reward. I don't need to be punished. Please just no more, no more, no more." The man whispered repeatedly as he rocked back and forth while the grinning black-haired Jonin had a sadistic grin on her face. "And we're back in the rebel base." "Achoo," sneezed Anko as she grew a slightly angry face. "Damn it, only I'm allowed to be sadistic," muttered Anko as Mei was going over orders for everyone. Now according to Naruto, Kumo has 3 leaders. The first is a woman by the name of Yugao. Spoke Mei as she held a picture of the woman that Naruto had sent her. Unfortunately it was hand-drawn. And Naruto is definitely not an artist. Thus it was a stick figure with a blonde ponytail. Naruto says that he suspects this woman is a Jinchuriki, though he doesn't know which tailed beast she houses. The second leader is a man named Derry. Continued Mei as she held up a hand-drawn picture of another stick figure. The only difference between the two was a flat mouth instead of a smiley face and white hair instead of yellow that went down covering half of the man's face. Naruto didn't mention anything, so we shall move on to the last man who is known as B. He is also suspected of being a Jinchuriki. Spoke Mei as she stopped for a moment to think of the name of the man. She then held up a photo that looked slightly similar to the last figure, only this one had shades and the person's hair didn't cover half of their face. "Do we have any info on these people?" asked Kushina calmly as she examined the hand-drawn pictures that made Rukia's pictures from Bleach look like works of art. "Not yet, although I must say for his first report it was halfway decent," spoke Mei as she examined the pictures while shaking her head slightly. Just then a man bursted through the flaps of the tent. "Mei-sama, I have ill news," shouted the man with fear in his eyes. "What is it?" spoke Mei as she was angry for the disruption. "Our camp that was monitoring the Kumo camp was attacked by 2 people, 1 male and 1 female. They both destroyed the camp and killed over half of the men," spoke the man with fear still evident in his voice. "Can you tell me more of what they look like?" asked Mei with a voice that held an unnatural calmness displayed only by experienced leaders. The boy looked no older than 14, he had spiky blonde hair and had 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Thus spoke the man before a loud snap was heard throughout the entire tent. "I swear, if he is doing this for any other reason than to gain higher rank within their camp, I will kill him," spoke Mei as she glared towards the Konoha ninja. "I will personally kill him if he is doing it for any other reason than to gain information," spoke Yugao as she put her hand on the hilt of her blade attached to her back for backing up her statement. "That's good because I certainly will kill him regardless of how much Am-chan likes him and how handsome he is. Although I might think about keeping him as a pet." Mei stated the last bit in thought as she mulled it over. "Not a chance," shouted several girls in the group immediately. "Darn it, okay, I'll settle for killing him then," spoke Mei in defeat. "So, what do you want us to do, Mei-sama?" spoke Kushina calmly as she tried to rein in her emotions. "I'll start your group off with hit and run on caravans," spoke Mei as she thought it over for a second and then handed them a folder. The group nodded as they accepted the folder and walked out. On the way out Kushina suddenly had a flash of a memory in her head. She stumbled silently for a second, not drawing any eyes. She looked around real quick and then shook her head free of the memory. "According to the form we will move out tomorrow night," spoke Kushina as they nodded before setting out to check their gear. Ice Fang looked at Kushina with squinted eyes before walking over to her. "What's wrong?" spoke Ice Fang without a single swear word. I'm fine Ice Fang, just a passing memory. Spoke Kushina as she walked off. Ice Fang let his gaze linger a second longer on her fleeting form before he turned to walk into the forest. In the middle of the forest, Ice Fang suddenly froze when he heard a familiar male voice across the forest. The male voice shouted help. Followed by several blood-curdling screams. Ice Fang looked in the direction of the sound and he snickered. Sorry Alpha, but you're funking on your own for this one. I ain't gonna funking deal with a woman high on funking anger. Spoke Ice Fang as he sprinted in the opposite direction of the sound. Back with Naruto moments earlier. Naruto was slowly backing away from the waterfall when he slowly turned. When he fully turned, he was staring eye to eye with the buxom blonde from earlier. Naruto stood rigid as he was face to face with a woman who was in her underwear. Samui stared at him intensely when he suddenly heard the woman behind him speak. Hey Samui, you coming in? Asked the woman. Sure Kiri, but do you want to bathe with this pervert watching us or kill him first? Asked the emotionless woman. What? Shouted the woman as she flew out from under the waterfall toward Samui. She landed next to Samui and looked around while still in the buff. She then locked eyes with Naruto as the masked blonde turned and sprinted away. However, as soon as he turned, he was in a headlock with his head pressed into the retard's modest bosom. I'm going to kill you, jackass. Shouted Kiri as she started to squeeze Naruto's neck. Help. Shouted Naruto as he struggled to get out of the headlock. Not cool. Spoke Samui, who had popcorn in her hand as she started to lob some into her mouth and eat it. Wait, I didn't mean to see you bathing. I seriously just stumbled upon this. Shouted Naruto as he quickly substituted with a log. You still saw me, so I'm sending you to hell. Shouted Kiri as she charged Naruto. The boy was blown back with blood from his nose when Kiri went to kick his face and he dodged it. Kiri saw the mask covered in blood and decided to tie him to a nearby tree due to him not moving. Unknown to Samui and Kiri, Naruto had substituted with a shadow clone he made. He was in the forest running now while Kiri was busy tying the clone up. As soon as Kiri had finished tying up Naruto, the boy's body exploded in smoke, leaving a fuming retard who was out for blood. The worst part of it all, however, was that she didn't even see who it was under the mask. Naruto finally stopped after a few more minutes of running. He looked around real quick before he pulled his mask off. He silently manipulated the water around him into liquid and washed the mask clean and then washed his face. Naruto sighed silently and then he suddenly felt tired. Thinking quickly, he shoeshined to the camp without his mask on and entered his tent for some much-deserved rest. Naruto opened his eyes to see Kyubi sitting under a tree whistling while petting his hair. Naruto stared up at the red-haired beauty and looked at her with admiration. She was the reason he was still alive. He didn't care about what happened to himself. He only stayed alive to prevent her from the pain of having to reform. Hey, Naru-kun. You okay, or are you just staring at me for another reason? Spoke Kyubi teasingly with a wide grin. Hey Kyu-chan, I'm fine, and you? Asked Naruto as he snuggled his head deeper into the kitsune's lap. Oh, I'm fine. Though you snuggle any harder and you may make my day even better, spoke Kyubi teasingly as she caressed his hair gently. Say Kyu-chan, what was mom like? Asked Naruto out of the blue after several minutes of silence. I don't know. Kushina and Mito never came in here except to take my chakra, and even then they spoke to me little. Spoke Kyubi as Naruto sat up suddenly. She looked at the boy inquisitively as he turned and smiled at him before lunging. Naruto engulfed her in a hug. He looked up and smiled mischievously. Hey Kyu-chan, can I take you on a date? Spoke Naruto as he looked up with a bright sincere smile. Why not Naru-chan? Spoke Kyubi lovingly as she started stroking Naruto's whisker marks. Instantly Naruto's face melted into her hand as he closed his eyes and began to purr softly. Kyubi giggled before retracting her hand, eliciting a pout from the blonde who smiled before grabbing Kyubi's hand and dragging her across the forest. They came out the other side of the forest onto a cliff that had a blanket strewn about near the edge. Kyubi smiled before looking at him. So what will we be doing here? Asked Kyubi with a smile as she saw the sun about to set. You know, the usual mushy stuff, watching a sunset, embracing each other and walking through the moonlit forest. Spoke Naruto with a smile. Wow Narukoi, I didn't know you liked this kind of thing. Spoke Kyubi with a giggle as they sat on the edge of the cliff and watched the sunset over the horizon. Only for you Kyu-chan. Spoke Naruto as he leaned his head into Kyubi's shoulder. And she rested her head on his. The two of them enjoyed each other's comforting warmth as they watched the fading light of the sun as it painted the sky a brilliant mixture of colors ranging from brilliant shades orange to calling purples. The two of them sighed in content as the sun finally disappeared. Naruto stood up, leaving Kyubi's warmth much to both of their discontent, and extended a hand out for the vixen. Kyubi took his hand and they began to walk back through the forest that was lit by fireflies and other odd types of vegetation that glowed brilliant colors. The two held hands while walking through the forest with smiles etched on their face when suddenly Naruto began to fade. "Narukoi?" asked Kyubi as she looked at the boy phase out of his own mindscape. "Probably something someone needs. Why the hell though do they have to bother us?" shouted Naruto as his entire body was gone and only his head was floating before it disappeared completely. "What the hell do you want?" shouted Naruto, scaring the person waking him. "Oh brother, I ain't no bother, I'm here to commission you for a mission," spoke an all too familiar rapper. "What mission is it, B-sama?" asked Naruto as he yawned away the sleep. "We need you to help guard a convoy going to Kiri," spoke Yugito as instantly something clicked in Naruto's head when he gained an ear-splitting grin. "I'm on it, I'll meet him at the gate," spoke Naruto as he started to put gear on. B and Yugito gave him a raised brow but let it go, thinking just as him being excited to do a mission of some form. Naruto had all his gear on as he waited by the gate for the convoy under the moonlight that made the ground slightly cream-colored instead of its ordinary green or brown. After a few moments he saw several ninja and a small horse-drawn cart approach him. Among the group of ninja Naruto saw a familiar retard and busty blonde. He instantly went rigid at the sight of them as pictures blared through his head. "Oh my, I never knew you were such a pervert, Narukoi," spoke Kyubi in teasing tone. "I know it's you flashing those pictures in my head," shouted Naruto back to Kyubi. "I would never do that. Hey, pay attention to the outside world," shouted Kyubi, making Naruto break the mind link and start to pay attention to the ninjas near him. "The funk in hell," shouted Kiri with utter frustration. You say something?" asked Naruto, who was no longer spacing out as a white-haired Konoha Jonin suddenly felt a tickle of pride for some reason. "So not cool," spoke Samui icily with an emotionless face. "For the bloody 18th time, you asshole, why the hell are you by the gate?" shouted Kiri, who was still pissed at Naruto. "Oh, I'm supposed to be helping the convoy on their journey," spoke Naruto sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head with one hand. "So you're our backup? What if we get ambushed and you space out and while you're spaced out you get killed and then because we get so sad due to your death we—" "Shut the hell up," shouted Kiri as she smacked the back of Amoy's head and began to beat him while he was on the ground, eliciting several sweat drops from those around. "So, why don't we start moving?" spoke Naruto calmly while still looking at the two ninja beating each other. "Let's move out," shouted the man in the seat as a few of the ninja got under the large covers and others just walked outside like Naruto. Silence, that was all that could be heard as the group of Kumo ninja traveled through the forest. Not even the horse made a sound. It was so quiet that Naruto and every other ninja could hear the beating of their bloody hearts as it pushed blood throughout their body. The ninja looked around as it was far too quiet. "Where are the birds?" asked one man to another, as we hadn't encountered a single bird for the last 5 miles, something very strange indeed. "Keep an ear out, I don't trust this fog," spoke the commander as a heavy fog started to roll in. "Geez, this is like a cliché ambush setting," thought Naruto while looking around with extreme suspicion. "And? I mean, it is a perfect situation, isn't it?" asked Kyubi, making Naruto silently face fault. Fortunately for Naruto, and I guess unfortunately for you, the reader, no ambush took place as they wandered past a fog-blanketed area. Naruto and the other ninja kept looking around but never spotted any rebels and they heard a bird after another mile. "I guess we were just being scared for no reason," spoke a random ninja to the commander. "I guess we continue to the west," rapped the commander. "Oh god, you've been hanging around B-sama, haven't you?" shouted a nearby ninja as the man continued to rap. Naruto ignored them as he smiled and let loose a sigh of relief. The reason why is that they had just got into the 2-mile stretch of land that had very little fog at any time and almost no area to hide for an ambush. Naruto was glad as it was nearing nightfall and he was getting tired once more. Naruto slowly nodded off to sleep to the lull of the moving cart. After all, he had been awake for nearly 20 hours and a total of about 200 miles. They had already passed the halfway mark around 18 miles ago and were making the last stretch till Naruto had to fight Yugura. Naruto had been asleep for about 3 hours before something happened that many people later in history would call the walking typhoon. The reason was simple, Naruto had been kicked out from under the covers of the cart due to an ambush. Naruto yawned while growling and he looked around, seeing Jutsus being thrown back and forth, some accompanied by kunai and others not. Naruto was still tired, yet he was pissed, he had been woken up from his sleep. Naruto now understood why Kyubi hated to be woken up and why she was angry every time. Naruto looked around once more before flipping through hand signs groggily. No one even noticed Naruto for a full minute until he spoke. "Whirlpool style. Oceanic Hydra," whispered Naruto in a groggy yet angered voice so as no one would hear him. In a single moment dozens of large heads burst forth from the air. It seemed to phase into existence as the large maw and head began to grow a neck that had spines all along its spine. The large plethora of heads crashed into the ranks of both friend and foe. Blood painted the short grass, and limbs littered the air and ground as a large body that was easily the size of a large mansion stood behind Naruto. The large beast born of water had 168 heads attached, and each head had 2 eyes that gleamed a pale and sickly green. The razor-sharp teeth made from water glowed a deep green as the teeth spun around viciously. The beast roared into the sky, yet instead of a roar, the sound of waves thrashing about on the sea could be heard for miles. The beast glanced around as Naruto yawned once more. Its sickly green eyes focusing on every ninja present. Naruto looked around before each head shot forth at the enemy ninjas this time. The enemy, seeing what the heads were capable of, quickly ran away. Just as a few were about to be caught, the heads of the Hydra suddenly just dropped to the floor, soaking the battleground. The enemy ninja counted their stars for their luck as they continued sprinting away. When the Kumo and Kiri ninja looked for Naruto, they saw him snoring once more in the middle of the battleground, whispering "Ramen" and "Stop Kaio-chan," thus eliciting many sweat drops all around. "Stupid blonde ninjas," whispered a Kiri ninja as they carefully placed him back in the cart to sleep. "Didn't know that Kaminari could do that," whispered an older Kumo nin who had mocked Naruto when he said that he had killed the 3 ninja when he walked in with their heads attached to his belt. "Has he always been that powerful?" asked Kiri with a slight amount of edge in her voice. "I don't think so," spoke Samui emotionlessly as her face set into one of calculation. "If he hid this from him, then he might be hiding other things from us. If he happens to be hiding that he is part of the enemy, then he could easily," began Amoy on his rant of anxiety before Kiri slammed a fist into the back of his head. The rest of the day passed by with no event to note besides Naruto sleeping 12 hours and waking only for the last 2 hours of the journey. They arrived in the village with very little celebration from the locals as they all held scowls on their face. The commander in charge of the convey, however, sent them off to a corner of the village to train and to sleep for the week to come before they would head back. Naruto could be seen in the middle of a flat plain surrounded by forest as he meditated. He was trying to increase his weak sensor abilities because right now he was merely running on instinct and Kyuubi's emotion detection. Granted, the emotion detection would be way better than a chakra-based sensor, but some people had little to no emotions. One such example is Itachi about 50% of the time. Naruto sat stone still for several minutes. Unknown to him, he was naturally calling in small amounts of natural energy. He began to gain slight canine features such as elongated canines, and his 3 whisker marks started to darken and thicken. He sat there for a long while as he started to feel the chakra around him. Then all of a sudden 2 large sources of chakra that dwarfed everything in the city, save a select few, entered the village. Naruto's eyes shot open. He knew he was screwed if his guess was right. "Attention men," shouted an officer who walked throughout the camp. "All shinobi please report to HQ," shouted the man as all the present ninjas started to walk to the place stated. Naruto fell in line as he was near the center of the group with taller men around him obscuring him from vision. Naruto's hawk-like gaze drifted around as he saw 2 people surrounded by several ninja approach. The first was a child-looking person with sand-colored hair, violet eyes, and a stitching-like tattoo under his left eye. The second was a giant of a man with dark-colored skin, whitish blonde hair, a goatee, 2 weird parts of a mustache, but no center, golden gauntlets, and an open white robe showing off his muscles. A giant golden belt with the head of a boar blocked the side of his abdomen muscles as his stern gaze drifted around the group of ninja who stood steady. Naruto could just feel the power rolling off of the 2 people. He didn't need to be a sensor to tell they were powerful in their own right. Just like the Hokage of his village. Naruto stood straighter as he felt the scrutinizing gaze of the Mizukage and Raikage land upon him. "You there in the center with the height round your neck," shouted the Raikage as everyone around Naruto took a huge step away from him. Naruto gulped before he turned and stared upon the large man. "Yes sir," shouted Naruto as he stood tense ready for an attack. If it came to it, he would be hard-pressed on a retreat. He could take 1 Kage if he took the person by surprise, but 2 was suicide for the boy. "What's your name, boy?" spoke the Mizukage barely above a whisper, yet it was loud enough to be heard from Naruto's position. Naruto remained silent with a defiant glint in his eye. The Raikage's eye glinted with mirth before he dismissed it. "What's your name?" asked a Raikage with a commanding voice. "Kaminari, sir," spoke Naruto quickly as Yugao gave an angry glance to the boy, clearly displeased with the blatant defiance. "And your reason for not answering me?" questioned the Mizukage heatedly as his hand drifted to his back slowly. "I do not answer to you, Mizukage," spoke Naruto, emphasizing the last word. The air began to grow thick with tension as Yugao drew his flower staff and held an angered glint in his eye. A single moment and then the tense air was broken by a laugh filled with amusement. "Ah, this one has spunk," shouted the Raikage approvingly, easily disarming the situation. "I would think of you as a Kage candidate with that attitude, but sadly you aren't strong enough," spoke the Raikage with a sigh. He obviously knew of the horrors of a Kage. That damn blasted horror known as paperwork. Yugao nodded as he understood what the Raikage meant. However, unlike the silence the Kages and their guards expected, they received slight giggles, snorts, and laughter. "Is there something funny about what your Raikage just said?" asked one of the guards heatedly. Silence quickly fell upon the shinobi as everyone shut their lips tight. "You," spoke the Raikage as he pointed to a shinobi who laughed the loudest. "Why were you laughing?" The man whom was asked the question began to sweat visibly. Just that he is more powerful than he looks, especially if you wake him up during a nap," spoke the man while whispering the last part with a shiver. "Oh? And pray tell how powerful he is," spoke Yagure with a raised eye, yet his face held an emotion of disinterest. "He could have single-handedly defended the caravan from anything less than a Kage," spoke another man as he stood firm. "And what jutsu did he use?" asked the Raikage with interest. "It was like a water jutsu, but it held some examples of a wind-style jutsu," spoke the same man as he stood rigid. "The combination jutsu then?" asked the Mizukage as he gripped his staff hard, waiting to pounce in case it was something else. "Yes, what I used was a combination jutsu," spoke Naruto, instantly defusing the tense air. "Well, a combination to an extent," thought Naruto with an internal snicker. "Ah, that good, you'll have to teach the battalion about it sometime," spoke the Raikage as he eyed the Mizukage cautiously. "Now then, onto the real order of business. Tomorrow we will be marching towards the rebel camp as one of our scouts have found its location," spoke the Raikage. "You are all dismissed for the day," spoke the Raikage as he went towards the head tent, no doubt to speak with Yugito, B, and Dari. Naruto drifted off to the very edge of the camp where he set his tent up, making sure no one knew what he was doing. Naruto looked around real quick and then made a mad dash for the forest, going unnoticed by all, or so you, the reader, have been led to believe. Naruto was several minutes into the forest as he looked around once more before seeing the coast was clear. He quickly went through a set of hand signs before saying summoning jutsu. In front of him was a familiar small wolf. "Yo, Yurang?" asked the small yellow-colored beast. "Yes, I did. I need you to take this to Mei-chan, do you understand, Sub-ai?" asked Naruto with a slight glare. Hi, don't get your knickers in a twist," spoke Sub-ai with a tinge of a British accent in his voice this time. "But now get to it," spoke Naruto as the beast took off. Naruto huffed before he took off in the opposite direction back to camp. Naruto was preparing to march to the rebel base with a heavy heart as he was going over what he should do. Why he has a heavy heart, you may ask. Well, as he was preparing to march to the camp, he noticed a letter on his desk. He wondered what the paper was and read it. Then he realized he forgot to give the letter to Sub-ai. "Funkity," he said under his breath as he did the signs for the summoning jutsu. Before him was a ticked-off Sub-ai. "Yo, you gonna give me the letter this time, you idiot?" spoke the angry wolf. "Yes, here, take it as fast as you can. I'll try to get it there in time, but you need to distract them." "How the hell am I gonna be able to distract the army? Maybe there's a way to delay us for a day." "But what?" thought Naruto while stroking his chin in deep thought. Naruto got up as he still didn't have an idea and walked around trying to see what he could do to stall the army of ninja. Food and water wouldn't work as ninja carried soldier pills, as well as knowing how to hunt. Water was useless as a water ninja could purify it. Naruto also knew he couldn't impede them via bad roads, as ninja took trees during missions like these. Then it hit him, he could create dozens of clones hinged into a single different person known among the rebellion to stall the army. He had the plan of action as everyone was notified where they were marching the night before. Naruto quickly summoned as many clones as he could and then gave each of them 5 chakra pill so they could stay in the fight longer. But that they left into the forest after hinging into a masked rebel ninja that Naruto had maimed beforehand. Several hours later, and Naruto was on the move through the trees when a hand from the Mizukage rose to tell everyone to stop. "We stop for a break," spoke the emotionless Yugura. During the break, Naruto looked for the Raikage, B, Dari, and Yugito. Yet, he found none of them. When he asked around, he found out that they were in Kumo taking care of a small rebellion that was starting up. Apparently the civilians didn't want Kumo being a dictatorship and wanted a government much like Konoha's. Naruto snorted in disgust at the mention of Konoha. Yes, while he did have precious people in the village, he still didn't like the civilians. They were the ones orchestrating everything, he found out after snooping around. The ninjas that had attacked Naruto during his childhood were part of Danzo's plans to lure him out of the village. Flashback. Naruto was running through the forest as quickly as he could. The reason why? Simple, he had men cloaked in black with pure white masks on chasing him. They kept shouting for him, "Stop and come with them." Naruto listened intently to Kyubi as she wanted him to head to Kumo as quick as possible. Naruto made a quick right turn, narrowly dodging a set of 5 kunai as he started his short-distance sprints. The young Naruto suddenly took off in the direction of Kumo, leaving behind a huge dust storm that blinded the root ninja chasing him for several minutes. Naruto finally lost a ninja that had been chasing him after half an hour's time. Naruto looked up into the sky to see it dark out when he heard running. Thinking quickly, Naruto quickly hid underneath a tree that gave a very small amount. Once under the tree, Naruto dragged some dirt to cover everything but his eyes. The ninja arrived and looked around carefully. One of the ninja unknowingly got his cape stuck on a branch, which pulled his cloak loose, revealing spiky white gravity-defying hair. The man turned and pulled his cloak back onto him. The man saw that he dropped something. He picked it up quickly before reading through it. He turned and stared right into Naruto's blue eyes. His one eye meeting his gaze. The white-haired man looked around quickly before putting a finger to his mouth, putting the file down, and retreating back to the rest of his team. Naruto heard fleeting feet and waited 15 minutes till after they were gone till he left his small hole. Naruto looked around tentatively before putting the file in his bag and started running to Kumo. With morning's light came the discovery that Naruto had been attacked due to Danzo passing around by ear that Naruto was the Kyubi incarnate. He also read up about how the team leader, Kakashi, had been acting squirrely recently. Naruto also read that Danzo suspected it was due to when Kakashi had visited the Hokage's mansion less than 2 weeks back. Flashback end. His hatred for Danzo was only compounded when he discovered that said mummy was the one who had been influencing the Hokage as of late. But that is getting off track as Naruto had begun his slow pace towards the rebel base. Less than 5 minutes into the trip, however, Lady Luck seemed to smile in Naruto and the rebels' favor as the Raikage ordered the entire army to halt. Kumo. Head back to Kumogakure. Iwa is mobilizing near our border. Shouted the Raikage as the Kumo ninjas abandoned the battlefront and retreated to defend their village. Naruto was stoked and managed to avoid detection as he hid in a nearby bush and placed chakra suppression seals upon him. Yugura, seeing the fleeing Kumo forces, grew furious. "How dare you go back on our deal, Raikage?" shouted Yugura as the Kumo forces were gone. Naruto grew a large smirk as he unsealed his chakra. With a large smile, he started to rapidly substitute himself, arriving moments later halfway between the rebel base and the Kiri army. Naruto stood in the middle of the road calmly as he heard marching steps approaching. Minutes later and the Kiri army was within sight. "Who are you?" asked Yugura in a calm tone as he gripped his staff tightly. "I am Death Incarnate and these are my messengers," spoke Naruto softly as he flipped through 24 hand signs whirlpool style. "Surging horde," spoke Naruto softly as dozens of wolves made of swirling deep icy blue water sprinted from the sides of the forest all around, their eyes a sickly black, causing fear to take root in the Kiri ninja. Naruto cracked a grin as he counted down in his head. 30. The wolves tore into several Kiri ninja before they started to fight back. Naruto also joined the fight as he unsealed his large katana that he was finally large enough to use. Charging fast, he started to cleave through enemies left and right with reckless abandonment. 25. Naruto then gripped the blade with one hand as he drew his smaller katana in the other hand before lining their hilts together to form a double-bladed staff. "Cleave," whispered Naruto silently. 20. Instantly the blade started to twist violently and began to fold on itself and wrap in random motions. Then the blade clicked loudly into place. Its blade, now a long 6 feet in length and colored a malevolent black that had an eerie red tint reminiscent of blonde. Its hilt curved forward slightly as the handguard was missing. 15. Naruto grinned once more before he began to tear apart his enemies once more. A ninja made a large wall of rock form in front of him, only for it to crumble as the ninja began to feel sluggish. 10. Naruto had cleaved a good 100-ish ninja before he jumped back for a breather. He looked around to see his 96 wolves near puddles. 5. Earth style. Earth dome. Shouted Naruto as a dome formed around him before going through another set of hand seals earth style. Hiding like a mole. Whispered Naruto as he began to dig underground away from the enemy rapidly before popping up. 0, counted Naruto with a large grin. Whirlpool style. Rupturing wall. Spoke Naruto as a large wall sprung up in front of him. The wall then slowly started to shake as ninja threw fire jutsu after one another in attempt to break the jutsu. Naruto smirked as he started walking away. A moment later the wall blew up, sending out senbons of great multitudes into the enemy's ranks. Although there were no deaths, many of the ninja now had yokai embedded within their chakra systems that slowly started to disrupt the chakra control of a great portion of the army for the day, as the yokai would leave their chakra system in 6 hours. Naruto sighed as he donned his mute self once more. He knew that he had gained the rebellion valuable time, but it wasn't as useful as Kiri losing Kumo as an ally. That was worth far more. As Naruto neared the rebel camp, he donned his wolf mask silently just as he landed in front of the gate with his hands raised in a surrender-like fashion. "Who are you? Speak quicker, lose your head," spoke several Kiri Anbu that had surrounded him. Naruto made to reach for his pocket, instantly making the shinobi tense. "Stay your hand," shouted another as they all prepared to lunge at the boy. Naruto however reached and pulled out a piece of chalk to show it, making the guards lower their guard slightly and then finally sweat drop as his other hand pulled out a chalkboard. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, Genin of Konoha reporting in," wrote Naruto rapidly. "Oh okay Naruto, follow us," spoke the apparent leader of the Anbu as indicated on his uniform. Naruto nodded as he followed the Anbu leader to a building covered in grass with several large willow trees around it. Mei-sama began the man before a chair hit him in the head, prompting the rest of the Anbu to wish Naruto good luck before going about their business. Naruto stepped into the building to see Mei stressed, then he looked outside to see people quickly moving as they were deploying traps. Naruto then turned back to see Mei gaze over at him. "Hello Naruto-san," spoke Mei in a slightly angry voice. "Hello, you have an additional 6 hours as I stalled them," wrote Naruto quickly as Mei heaved a sigh of relief. "That's good, also thank you," spoke Mei with a happy look in her eyes. "Why?" wrote the young blonde uneasily as his eyes held unease. "For not killing the ones in the camp as you were with the blonde Kumo girl. At first I thought you were a traitor. That is until we checked and found swords slashed that would incapacitate yet not kill. I am extremely grateful as you managed to do both of your jobs. I understand however for appearances on the ambush, I am glad that you didn't kill them all. However due to killing some I will be putting stipulations into the treaty. That aside we need you to help around in setting up the defense. Here's what you're going to do. Time skip." The sound of feet could be heard in the distance as the forest about a mile out had trees swaying heavily. Every now and then a tree would even topple over for some unknown reason. Then a bright glow could be seen accompanied by screams of pain. The screams were then accompanied by battle cries as ninja, where blue vests sprinted out of the tree line with weapons in hand, ranging from kunai to two-handed cleavers. The approaching army however soon was met with one loud thunderous shout of water style. Exploding water colliding wave water style. Wild water wave followed by a large wave that surged forth before several shouts of lightning style. False darkness as large beams of lightning touched the approaching tsunami, causing the wave to crackle with its electrified state before impacting the forest. Screams of pain could be heard once more as many of the enemy ninja were injured and out of commission. However only a small amount were dead. Taking advantage of the enemy being in a dazed state, many ninjas surged forth from the ramparts and engaged in hand-to-hand combat taking many Kiri ninja lives due to their shocked state. Then a roar of water style. Water dragon bullet technique was heard as dozens of water serpents burst from the forest, killing both enemy and ally alike. The rebel ninja quickly pulled back seeing the dragons. Just as they began to pull back from the many red-eyed sea serpents, a blonde-haired boy charged through the ranks in the direction of the forest before going through his own hand seals. Whirlpool style. Predator's cage whispered Naruto as a pair of vortices burst from the ground on either side of Naruto violently, causing pieces of rock to impact on several enemy ninja and a few allies. The swirling columns of water rose from the ground higher and higher before arcing quickly and began to split off forming a web in the sky that further continued to arc. Every spot that the web touched the ground a ball of crimson liquid could be seen that was accompanied by not only blood-curdling screams but also by pieces of flesh being flung around wildly. "Enough," came a deep voice as the Kiri ninja quickly got behind one childlike man. Instantly a wave of crimson chakra was sent out stopping the nearby jutsu. Yugao could be seen at the front of the army as he began to be cloaked in red. "I will not waste any more time on you weaklings," finished Yugao as his body exploded into that of a ginormous turtle painted tan, accompanied by 3 large armored tails. The Sanbi towered over Naruto as the blonde boy released a frustrated sigh before biting his thumb, drawing blood, and flipping through hand signs. The Naruto planted his hand on the ground whispering summoning jutsu. An enormous plume of smoke could be seen that was half the overall height but the equivalent height of the Sanbi. The smoke dispersed revealing a large wolf with a midnight black pelt of fur, its eyes glowed a ghostly blue, its breath was a crimson smoke that reeked of blood. The large wolf turned its pupilless eyes towards the Sanbi before growling with a deep and menacing sound. "What do you want boy? Does it have something to do with this turtle?" spoke the beast finishing the last sentence after a bit of thought. "Yes, I do require your aid Dai Sanji," spoke Naruto softly as the giant beast's breath began to slowly heat. "You're lucky you saved my son," spoke the beast with a bellow before he surged forth with Naruto still atop his head. "Fire style. Great fire annihilation," shouted the large wolf as he expelled a massive wave of fire that encased the Sanbi. The large turtle let loose a pained bellow as it took the fire attack head on. Then the beast let loose a roar before lifting itself on its hind legs and then crashing back down to the floor, causing a massive earthquake to shake the very foundation of the earth. Although shaken Dai Sanji and Naruto continued their charge before clashing in combat with Yugao. Every time a swing came from the wolf the Sanbi would block with a tail. When Dai Sanji would use its massive maw to chomp down on the turtle, said turtle would either hide in its shell or shoulder charge the large wolf. Naruto got thrown off on one such time and impacted the floor. Naruto released a grunt before getting up and drawing his normal katana. Naruto looked around to see several approaching Kirin with various weapons. Naruto took a deep breath as he closed his eyes. Baleado whispered Naruto as his eyes snapped open, followed with a long slash that tore into a few ninja, bisecting them in two. But the splattered blood, Naruto charged into the crowd swinging his sword as he seemed to dance. Naruto went through his katas for his kenjutsu style in rapid fashion of slash twice, lunge, parry, dodge, kick, and repeat. Naruto's dance head to the earth and trees stained red as he weaved through enemies as if they were nothing. Unfortunately, Yugura had the upper hand over Dai Sanji as it started to roll and use its own strong toothless jaw. Yugura got a lucky snap of its mouth in on the large beast's shoulder, causing Dai Sanji to let loose a howl of pain before it burst into smoke. DCH, spoke Naruto quietly as he jumped back, dodging a massive tail that would have crushed him. Naruto turned and held a fist in front of him. Blind style. Rot farm, spoke Naruto as he rapidly opened the fist in front of him. Instantly a piece of the Sanbi's armored hide exploded crimson as a gentle red mist slowly fell over Naruto. Turned. However, it was a very small area that the Sanbi itself didn't even notice. Naruto was suddenly thrown back as one of the Sanbi's tails hit him hard. "What do I do, Kaiju-chan?" asked Naruto as he coughed up a little blood from being hit before resuming his plan of dodging the angry turtle's tails. HNK could be heard in Naruto's mindscape. Damn beautiful lazy women, thought Naruto as he dodged another tail. Naruto continued to dodge the tails and feet of the Sanbi before weaving a set of hand signs together. Whirlpool style. Oceanic Hydra, spoke Naruto once more as the water left over from the tsunami turned into several dozen heads attached to a large lizard-like body. The Hydra had glowing green eyes and was larger than Dai Sanji, but still smaller than the ever-titanic Sanbi. Naruto threw his hand forward, and the heads of the Hydra obeyed as they surged forward with their maw open wide as they prepared to take a chunk out of the Sanbi. 25. Naruto counted once more as he drew his blade and charged forward. 20. Naruto dodged to the side of an armored tail as he heard the raging battle around him. Some were watching Naruto and Yugura, but a few were fighting each other. Nonetheless, Naruto jumped on top of the Sanbi with his katana in hand as he swung at the armored shell relentlessly. However, Naruto's sharp blade bounced off harmlessly as the Hydra heads continued to distract the large turtle. 10. Naruto jumped off, seeing as how he wouldn't be able to crack the Sanbi's shell. "Kaiju-chan, I need your chakra, please let me use it," shouted Naruto in his mindscape. You woke me just as I was gonna drop down on your I mean on the rabbit, yeah, the rabbit. Anyways, you try to keep your emotions in check, Narukoi," spoke Kyubi as Naruto began to have a small blush on his face. "Biro Kitsune," spoke Naruto as his stomach began to seep red chakra that started to envelop Naruto's lithe form. 5. Naruto's whiskers became defined and bold as he grew claws. His once dull sapphire blue eyes became slitted crimson gems. His ears became fox-like as he had a single tail waving behind him lazily. Then Naruto crossed his fingers, making 2 more copies. Naruto held out his hand as the 2 began to rapidly tap around his palm. A ball of blue chakra began to form. The blue ball then gained a deep blue watercolor that was tinted slightly red as it spun viciously in every which way possible. A furious sound of angry crashing waves could be heard just barely over the sound of screeching winds. Till came a soft whisper at the back of Naruto's head. "He killed families." The voice spoke once more. "You must avenge them, Naruto." "No," thought the boy as the sphere in the boy's hand shook slightly and glowed a dull red. "But you promised that you would protect the families, will you go back on your Nindo way?" asked the voice with malice present. "No, I won't, but he will not die by my hands," spoke Naruto calmly with resolution as the presence of the voice in the back of Naruto's head disappeared. 0. Whirlpool style. "Race and Vortex," spoke the demonic Naruto as the 2 copies of him disappeared in a plume of red smoke. Naruto looked up before running towards the Sanbi. The screeching sound got louder and louder, as well as the sound of the waves, as Naruto progressed rapidly towards the Sanbi. In addition to the sound increase, the ball became smaller and more dense, as well as the violence of the swirling as he approached. Then from around 50 meters away, Naruto threw the dense ball of chakra. As soon as the ball impacted the Sanbi, it expanded outward as Naruto ran as fast as he could away from said dome. A large dome of water swirled violently around as wisps of green and red made an appearance near the edge of the dome. Naruto let loose a huff as he panted lightly while having his hands on his knees. Naruto looked up to see the Sanbi lying on its belly as it was soaked in crimson liquid. The Sanbi let loose a gurgled sound as it started to morph back into Yugura. The feminine-looking childlike man laid in a crater with a large portion of his body covered in red. He had blood oozing out of his mouth and nose as his crimson-stained chest raised and lowered ever so slightly, revealing that he was in fact awake. "I see so clearly now," whispered the man quietly as he stared at the sky with a far-off look. "I can finally be free from not only that man cough but also this pain," spoke the man in a low whisper as his eyes stayed wide open. A kunai flew through the air, embedding itself in the man's heart. Mei appeared next to Naruto a moment later. Without thinking, Naruto got on his knees and took the kunai from the man's chest. Yugura's chest stopped moving and his body grew slightly paler. His eyes also gained a slightly glazed look to them. Naruto gazed upon the late Mizukage with a calm face. Yugura looked even more peaceful in death than he had ever seen in the time the Kage lived. Naruto smiled a little, knowing he would be able to go home soon as he had completed his mission. Granted, the time to complete it had moved up from another 3 months to a week's time. Naruto then gave a glance around to see that all eyes were on his slightly bloodied form. The eyes had mixed feeling dwelling within them. Some held happiness, while others held sadness, then there were the few that held hatred for the man. Naruto let a smile grace his face as he turned to address them before he was interrupted by Mei. "Yugura is dead. We have won," shouted Mei as a roar of approval could be heard from both sides as brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters hugged with tears in their eyes. While others looked on with anger before turning and sprinting away from the battlefield, their eyes holding a flame of vengeance. "We did it. I can see my wife again," were a few of the similar shouts heard throughout the armies. "Ah no," spoke a young girl about Naruto's age as she tugged on his shirt. "Yes," spoke Naruto quietly, surprising Mei once more with his soft voice. "Do you know where my mommy and daddy are? Zabuza and I said they would find me at the end of the war." "I," began Naruto, only to see a man with a face mask reminiscent of Kakashi's hold a finger to his lip in a silencing motion. "Hakumato, I'm afraid to say that your parents are G," began the man known as Zabuza, only to be interrupted by Mei. "On a mission. I sent them to investigate and observe a foreign country that is suspected to have aided Yugura in his quest," spoke Mei as the young-looking girl nodded in acceptance, and Zabuza released a sigh of relief before looking at Naruto once more. "You're quite young to be killing," spoke the man with slightly squinted eyes. "And you're quite old, what with those gray hairs and all," wrote Naruto quickly with a large grin etched on his young baby-like face. "Why, you little Roo. Shut up before I kill you both," spoke Mei with a bittersweet-looking smile on her face as a Hanyu mask made an appearance behind her. Then the man who Naruto vaguely remembered walked into the scene before noticing Mei's look. "Did she say to shut up or death?" asked the man as he gave the two nodding males a sympathetic look. "Mei-sama, when will my parents return?" asked Haku quietly. "I don't know, but you can stay with me until they come back," spoke Mei, giving the girl faux hope. "Where is my team?" questioned Naruto as he donned his wolf mask once more. "Hello, Naru-kun," shouted an excited purple-haired woman who wore a viper mask as she hugged him from behind and shoving his head into her generous bosom. "Let him go, Anko," spoke Yugao calmly as she began to draw her blade. "Yes, let Sachi go, Databane," shouted Kushina with her dragon mask on as Naruto did a double take. "So you remember Kasan?" wrote the boy as he began to sniffle lightly. "Yes, I remember Sachi, I only wish I could have been with you from the beginning," spoke Kushina with a loving smile as Naruto enraptured her in a bear hug and began to sob quietly. There Sachi, Kasan is here," whispered Kushina quietly as she began to whisper sweet nothings into his ear as well. "I'm yawn tired, Kasan," spoke Naruto quietly, shocking his mother as he uttered something through his mouth. "Go to sleep, Sachi, I'll keep you safe," spoke Kushina quietly as Naruto drifted to the world of unconsciousness. "He sounds so much like Mina-kun," thought Kushina as she picked him up bridal style. Kushina smiled and blushed slightly as Naruto curled up and nuzzled his head into Kushina's chest. "I believe it is time for us to return to Konoha," spoke Bear as he and several others stood a little away while holding slightly jealous glares aimed as Naruto for his current position. "Wait," shouted Mei, getting the shinobi to stop and turn to her. "What is it you require, Mei-sama?" asked Dragon evenly. "A moment please, and then I have a document I need delivered to your Hokage," spoke Mei as she unsealed a desk from a scroll. The desk had some untouched parchment as well as a well of ink, a stamp, and a quill. A moment later Mei handed the scroll to Kushina before the Konoha ninja nodded and then departed with Kushina carrying her son bridal style. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.